welcome to a new episode of the Game Informer Show. I'm Ben Hansen, joined by Kyle Hilliard.
I'm here.
Matt Miller.
I'm also here.
And Kimberly Wallace.
I'm here.
A combo that has never appeared together on the Game Informer Show.
I think you're right.
You researched this?
It doesn't. I know I didn't, but just thinking, it feels weird.
I think I've been on with Kim, and I think I've been on with Kyle.
But never together.
Yeah, individually.
Can we form like some sort of giant robot or anything now that we're...
Legs. Dibs on legs.
And that's coming up at the hour mark in this podcast, so definitely keep listening. So in this episode, we're kind of wrapping up the year in a way by talking about the underappreciated games, the games that flew under the radar. We've blabbed our mouths about Red Dead for so long on this show. Now we're going to talk about the underappreciated Red Dead Online. No. So we're going to go around the table with 3 games that we feel like deserve a little more attention this year, right? There's so many. There's been at least 20 games this year. And then we have some really fun emails. I'm very excited about these.
Oh boy.
I really think this is a very good batch. Thank you, everybody that wrote into podcastgameinformer.com for doing it. And then back half of the show. I'm ready to retire.
You're backing away from the mic. That's how excited
That's how excited I am about this. We have on this show Will Wright, the legendary Will Wright.
Old WW himself?
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. Kyle, maybe you remember, Mark McDonald was on the show doing like a rapid fire thing.
Yeah.
It was very fun. And he asked, who do you want to have on the show more than anybody else? My answer was like, well, it was a pipe dream. I don't know, like Will Wright. And then suddenly,
Here
he is, because he is contributing to the Masterclass series. Do you know this? Where like you pay for these iTunes U like classes, right? Where it's like, hey, here's Scorsese teaching you how to direct a film or whatever. And they got Will Wright to do the first video game design one.
That's cool.
Why go to college? I mean,
it's true.
That's
Yeah,
right.
drop out, kids.
Yeah, just do it.
Yeah.
Follow your dreams. Right?
So it was an honor. It was tough. It could have been 40 minutes of me just worshiping him. I tried to keep that to a minimum. But
Did you screw this up, Ben?
No, I'm very happy with the interview.
Okay.
He's like, I love it. He's very blunt.
Yes.
But when you're so smart, you can be blunt. You know what I mean?
Remember the E3 that he just gave away like asteroid rocks?
That's what Reiner and Andy were just talking about.
Yeah.
What's the story? Do you know this better?
He was decollecting.
So he was walking around E3 handing out pieces of...
People who came in to see the behind closed door demo for Spore, I think it was. He was just at a point in his life where he's like, yeah, I've collected these asteroids for a while, and I've just decided it'd be pretty cool if they just kind of got spread out across the world. And he just gave people asteroid rocks.
You want to hear the biggest...
that's actually pretty cool.
That's awesome.
I don't know if I got one or not.
The biggest bummer was Andy told me that story earlier today when I asked if he had any questions for Will Wright. And then he told me that story, and then he said, I don't know where that went. It's like, what? Will Wright gives you an asteroid. That's how amazing of a life Andy's had, where he can lose something that cool.
Well, Reiner knew where his was.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
Hold on to that.
Maybe more into space than Andy is.
I don't think I got one.
But anyway,
I think you know what I think happened. I think I went.
Anson knows him. He's
I saw it. I went and saw it after he'd already finished handing all the ones he had out. I think is what happened.
Miller.
But it's a nice opportunity to talk to Will Wright about his career. Obviously, Maxis, creator of SimCity, The Sims. He's got too many games to list. But we talk about, let's see, get his take on No Man's Sky. Get his take on Mr. Wright in Smash Brothers, which was more interesting than I expected.
Mr. Wright?
Yeah, it's still an assist trophy from SimCity 2000 on Super Nintendo. Technically, Will Wright is kind of sort of in Smash Brothers Ultimate, which is weird.
Cool. Yeah.
We talk about what he considers the most glorious failure of his career, and I'm very fascinated in it. And it's a game.
4DS.
Close.
Oh, really?
It's a game you wouldn't expect, but I was happy to be able to talk to him about this. And then also I asked him for the most important piece of fiction or book that he's ever read in his life. He said he's read this one book over 10 times. It's the most influential. Stay tuned to the interview to find out what
Oh, Ben.
I'm going to have to watch this interview now.
I bet Miller's read it as well, and that's why they're both smart. Okay, underappreciated games. We each have 3, but if we flow over, it's a little like the music thing, Kyle. Like the last episode, what are you going to do, right?
Yeah.
Okay, number 3. Third most underappreciated game of 2018, according to Sir Kyle Mead Hilliard.
That's a weird one. Thanks for getting my middle name out there. Here's my social security number as well. Here's a weird one. The Labo Vehicle Kit.
There we go. Great choice. Great choice.
I will say, so I think Labo was exciting, and it is exciting, but it didn't blow up in the way I hoped it would, in the sense that I was very excited to see what creative kids would do with it. Because
but kids didn't get creative with it, is that
I mean,
what you're saying?
honestly, I haven't seen a ton of stuff,
Right.
because it's basically, if you guys haven't dug into Labo too much, it's a programming tool as well as it's the idea that you can program the Switch to do different things. with cardboard, and they give you like, it's like Legos, right? Like you get a set that you can follow instructions and build, but the real joy comes from like making your own stuff and programming and stuff like that. I didn't see a ton of that, which was like, and maybe it's out there and I just haven't seen it.
I mean, they can do that with Lego or Minecraft.
Yeah, totally.
And not cardboard.
And maybe that's why it didn't blow up.
I think why.
Well, the reason I was excited for it at the time was because like cardboard is like pretty readily available.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you have to go buy Legos, and Minecraft is a piece of software that you have to purchase. But I mean, you can find cardboard like laying around.
You could
the
make
house.
some weird stuff out of it.
Yeah.
And I remember even when we first talked about it on the show, what, this year? I guess it was, right?
This year, yeah.
Of just talking about like, oh man, I'm sure that subreddit's going to be blowing up and some weird stuff's going to be popping up every once in a while. Kind of the way we talk about dreams now.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess I haven't
really-
seen anything. Yeah, I
Yeah.
want to see one crazy thing
Yeah.
pop up on Reddit of like, look what I made in Labo. I programmed this automaton.
I forgot that even came out.
Yeah. And so the one that I'm focused on specifically is the vehicle kit, because there were the two that came out right away, which was like the piano and stuff, and the robot kit. The robot kit's really is the worst of the three.
Right.
But the vehicle kit is cool because it has the most interesting things to make. And then the game that is included with it is like a big open... I'm hesitant to say open world because that like elevates it too much.
Open land.
But it's a big open area where you can switch between car and plane and submarine, and there's like a lot to explore. It's really cool. And I think that the excitement around Labo had expired by the time the third one came out, but it's easily the best one.
Do you think it'll be the last one?
No. I think it sold well.
Really? Do you think so?
so? Yeah. Like there were some like Europe tracks, that stuff more, and there's like Famitsu tracks that are a little closer. And I think in like Japan and Europe it did pretty well.
Huh.
And I think Nintendo's excited about it, but it might be a while. I don't know.
Is
I'm not
this
sure.
vehicle kit so good that I should like take the little cardboard pedal out of the vault and try and play this thing where I drive around this green world?
You know, because I've built everything,
Yeah.
and you could just take it home pre-built and just play the game, I think it's worth checking out.
But I'd have to carry a
So you've
cardboard
taken all
robot.
the actual fun part out.
Exactly.
Yes, I built
and
the
left
Legos
the
for
boring
you.
part for Hanson.
Yeah.
No, the
exactly.
game is cool. That's what I'm saying. The game is surprisingly cool.
I think we all agree that building is the best part of Labo,
Yes, yeah.
right? It's
It's
like if I
fun.
handed
It's super
somebody
fun.
that cardboard house that I built and said, hey, look, you can pull out the little knobbers, and then the guy inside reacts. It's like, okay.
But for your individual purposes of like, let me check out this cool thing I missed,
Yeah.
just to spend an hour with it. And
Academic
not have to,
Labo,
Yes,
yeah.
not having to spend 4 or 5 hours realistically building everything and just
Right.
try out the game. I think you should.
That's a great choice. I love that. Kyle.
I'm very
Didn't
proud
see
of
it
it.
coming. Matt Miller, top that hot shot. Number 3.
Let's go with Minit. Minit.
Of
Minut's good.
course.
I've heard great things about this game.
A Minut's a fun little game. It is true to its name. Every playthrough is a minute long. You play a character who's cursed, and you have to kind of run around this world in what's kind of like a black and white Zelda view of the world, right?
Yeah. It feels a little Link's Awakening, yeah.
Yeah, and you get as far as you can in 60 seconds, and then you die, and it respawns you at a new spot, or at the spot that you started at. Within that constraint, that creative constraint, forced the designers to do some really fun, clever things with the progression of the game. There are things that carry over, of course, between each playthrough, right? And
What's it like, changing the world or items? I'm trying to remember.
my favorite early example of this is there's a section where you run over to a guy and he talks really slowly, and so his little word bubble comes up with like one letter at a time. And if you rush over there right as your minute begins and you get to him and you immediately hit talk, then there's just enough time before the minute finishes that you get his clue, that he finishes talking to you, and he gives you a bunch of innocuous information first, where he's like, "Hello, how are you?" And then he
Boy,
finally
the
tells
ocean
you
is
like,
beautiful.
there's,
Wait,
like,
wait, is this a version of hell?
and so, but that's just like kind
You
of
have a
one
minute.
thing that you do. And other times you have to like rush over and grab a particular item before the minute's up. It's really simple, but it's got some clever puzzles to it.
and there's like new checkpoints. Like it's not as
There
simple as you're
are.
starting from the same area every time. There's a
You
weird
find a new,
progression
like
to
new
it.
kind of homes, and when you
Right.
find a new home, then that can be your new spawn point, and that's the way that it actually spreads out further than how far you'd be able to run from the original start point.
And then you can like lift rocks. You know, like if you get strong enough to lift rocks, you're like creating a shortcut to get through. It's really cool. It's also there's just like nothing like it. Like I played through it and finished it and really liked it. And there's really, I mean, it kind of, if you're like a fan of Zelda, you might be into it. But like the sort of overlay, like the whole concept of the game, like really, I don't think I've ever played anything like it. Like,
and it's that rare game too where it has like that high clean concept where it's like, oh, that's interesting, that's something for game designers to think about, but no one's going to pull it off and actually have it play well. And it's like, oh no, they actually did it, and it feels satisfying throughout the entire experience.
It's cool.
It's crazy. Minit,
good
spelled
pick.
Minit.
That's right.
You got it. Kimberly Wallace.
Oh boy. Okay, so this one might be a shocker for people if they know me pretty well, but I'm gonna go with Ni no Kuni 2.
Interesting choice.
Underrated.
I feel like it did not blow up the way the first one did, and it kind of got overlooked. I'm not sure why, but I liked it a lot more than the first game. I am a sucker for base building, and I was so enamored with that. And I just kind of, you can say it's a bit too easy, and I think that's what turns some people off. But now there's the hard mode.
Right,
yeah?
which is basically going to be the normal mode.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I love an easy game, but that game was a cakewalk.
Yeah, I mean, that was the only thing. But, and I also didn't like, what are those other battles with
The RTS type of
yeah,
stuff.
the RTS battles.
Outside of those two things.
Yeah.
Well, those make up a small portion of what
Yeah,
is
it
otherwise a
does.
large
I
game.
mean, I just liked it. I liked how different it was. Like, okay, they could have put out a very similar game to the first one because the first one was successful for them. And I really feel like they tried to do something different. They put the base building in. The story's a little twisted and a little crazy and dark at sometimes.
It's much more interesting than I expected. We've, I think, spoiled the opening of that game before, but worth spoiling again here. The first
Just
5
get
minutes.
ready to hit that 30-second forward button.
The game opens with a bomb going off on Earth. I mean, is basically how it happens.
Yeah.
Then you play as a very interesting character. The most interesting character you could play as from planet Earth, going to the world of Ni no
Arguably.
Kuni.
I mean, the thing that has intrigued me, I haven't played it yet, but the thing that intrigues me about this game is that it does in some ways what I have often said I want JRPGs to do more of, which is to use this great style that has been established over so many years and start doing a little bit some more original storytelling, right? And not always have everything be driven by these tropes that I've already played.
The fog, and there's a
100
tree.
times.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certainly some of that. in Ni no
But I
Kuni
like
too,
that they took some risks and they didn't
did,
have
yeah.
to. And I feel like for me, it's the right kind of risky because it pays off. But I just feel like I don't know why it felt like people weren't talking about it as much.
I agree. I feel like it has definitely died down, and maybe when it hit, there was a
little
medium
bit,
amount
but
of buzz.
not as much as they did with that first game. And for me, Level 5 fixed a lot of their issues with that first game. The AI is much better than in that game, and it just has a better, for me, loop. I think the battle system's really fun, but like I said, I think that easiness factor put some people off, and now that it finally has that normal mode in there, I think you guys should all give it a try if you were
Definitely,
interested in it.
And
So
it's
the easy is not really a knock for me. It's one of the reasons
people
I
don't want
finished.
it. Yeah,
that's
some people
true.
don't wanna
Yeah, but
deal with that.
for me, I think one of the reasons I finished it was because I never really felt like I had to grind. I never had to do any boss fights more than once, which was nice. I don't know if I would have finished it if I got stuck.
Yeah, I
anywhere,
like
you
that
know?
there wasn't that dependence on grinding to get. I always say,
Yeah.
grinding to me is not difficulty. Difficulty is being strategic in battle and using your powers correctly and, tapping things at the same time. So,
Yeah, it's just a good JRPG adventure that is not grating, at least in my experience. And also what I love about it too is just the clarity. I know this is also maybe dumbing things down for some hardcore fans, but just the idea that hey, there's a mini map, it'll tell you exactly where to go all the time. There's still plenty of side stuff to find. Obviously recruiting characters to build up your town, that's super fun, but you're never going to be confused. It's just point to point to point to point, adventure to adventure, adventure, adventure. It's the best. The best. Great choice.
thank you.
For me, my number 3, this is tough. Because I don't think this is a great game.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
But I think this is one of the most interesting games of the year, and I don't think people are talking about it at the end of the year at all. Maybe even in Game Informer's big year-end recap meeting for the top 50 games of the year and stuff, it was just moving on. But I feel like it needs to give, it deserves some due. A Way Out.
I knew you were going to bring this up.
I think that's
I freaking hate that game so much.
I'm sorry,
that game,
you're wrong.
That game sucks.
It does not suck. It's at least interesting, right? This is if you
I'm
don't
mad.
know-
I went and I spent money for this game because people were talking about it, and I was playing it with a friend. When we were doing the side by, this will be interesting, and then the acting and just, the stuff with the stealth of like trying to figure that out with someone else, I just found it more frustrating than fun.
I loved it.
Well,
It's really funny to hear like the two of you talk about it because like I was almost exactly in the middle.
Oh, funny.
Like I didn't love it, but I thought it was kind of neat to like I played with a buddy who I don't always get to play games with, and it was kind of neat to be like, okay, well, how do we do this? So I think you're gonna have to be over here, and I'm going to have to stand over here. And I don't know, it's kind of unusual.
So obviously the big hook that I think we're bearing the lead, if you don't remember what this is, it is the split screen only co-op game. Even if you're playing online, it's split screen. It's from the creator
so you
of
can
Brothers.
see what the other character's doing.
Right.
I
and
love the idea of that.
Yes, and
That
I
is
love how interesting and novel and different it is, just having the screen change sizes. You're working on different things. Like it's a game with some really interesting sequences. Overall, I don't think it's like, this is a great game that you must play. But if you're interested in like
You can't deny the
split-screen co-op
innovation.
adventure, what's that?
So you can't deny the innovative nature of it.
Right. And there's really great sequences. Like the ending, I think it really surprised me for what it was going for. I didn't expect it to take that direction. But then also even towards the middle, there's like a big jailbreak sequence where you're like handing tools off to each other, like just trying to sneak around, distracting guards and whatnot. Like it's one of my favorite sequences of the year, at least, just that jailbreak moment within A Way Out. But I think it deserves some praise for being different this year. That's all, everybody.
Fair enough.
Just relax. Everyone walk off the cliff. It's fine. Walk
still-
across
I-
me, I mean.
I
still-
have to say how I feel.
get
Yeah, of course. I started it and I was just kind of like shoulder shrug. Okay, this is interesting. But the thing I'm getting to is I really still want to see what Fair is doing next.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
he's so weird the way he approaches games. Like it's really unlike anybody else. Whether it works every time, we'll see. But like I want to see what that guy does next for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
It's also funny how adamant he hated the idea of people playing Brothers together.
Yeah.
And then to go be like, you know what, I'm actually going to make the fully opposite of that and make a game that you
Well,
can
that was-
only play with somebody
That
else.
was the funny thing, yeah, because remember, like in the afterwards, we brought it up because I said, like, oh, I actually played Brothers with like a friend, like taking the other
Sharing a
analog
controller.
stick, yeah, and he was just, I've never seen somebody vomit during an interview, but like, no,
It's like, I would rather you cut off my own hands, I think is something he said, than see people play
Wow.
Brothers cooperatively, which is so funny.
seriously, who's doing that in your office? I'm gonna hunt them down and hurt them. Yeah. By the way, I'm making a co-op game next.
Oh, thanks, Joseph Ferris.
Kyle, number 2.
Oh, number 2. It's my turn again. Let me pull up my notes. Oh, it's a VR game. It was called Moss,
Oh yeah.
which,
A little mouse.
yeah, there was an
little mouse.
It was a little mouse.
Like a little tiny mouse.
Little cute mouse.
He's a little cute.
Astrobot came out this year and certainly stole its thunder because it was a third-person kind of platform. But the thing that I really like is I really got into VR in a big way this year, like touched up by like Beat Saber. I really dug deep into VR. And some of my favorite experiences were third-person action games. And it's this weird thing that I think VR developers are a little hesitant to try because they think VR, it has to be first person. The player has to be integrated in this world. But like, I really liked Moss as just cute little story. You control, it's like isometric view overhead and you're controlling a mouse through a series of puzzles and action and stuff like that. And the animation of the mouse is so good. It's like some of the
Yeah.
best like animal character animation I've seen in a while. I think in my review I ended up cutting it because Joe gave me the note, and I do agree with him in retrospect that it was probably too hyperbolic. But I was comparing it to Trico from The Last Guardian as like some of the best animal character animation I've seen in a while. But
Yeah.
it's just adorable. It's a great VR game that like won't make you sick, and it's fun. And it's kind of presented as a book one, so I'm very curious to see where it goes next because it is kind of like a Redwall-ish kind of story.
Right. But it's confusing. I think it was this year that other mouse game, Ghost of a Tale or whatever, also came out. That was
Yeah.
also very Redwall-ish. And I feel like they've
Yeah.
announced 5 mice movies that are like Redwall, but not Redwall. It's like, just make the Redwall film. But anyways, I think Moss might be getting kind of a second win now because there's so many great deals on PSVR, and it was
Yeah.
bundled with Astrobot and Moss.
Those are like two great like VR games for this year. Beat Saber, Moss, and Astrobot are like the 3 to get if you're picking up a PSVR for sure.
Yeah. Great choice. Matt Miller, number 2.
Let's talk about Red Strings Club.
Please. This came out like January. or
Yeah,
something.
I think I have at least to thank for this game. She brought it up as being something we should be thinking about, and I was like, I didn't even know about it. And I went home and I downloaded it and played it all the way through in pretty much one sitting, and it was great. It's kind of an unusual game to describe. It's sort of a cyberpunk future your main character is a bartender, and a significant chunk of the game is about you making drinks for people who come into your bar, like literally like pouring out drinks that
And
will
just-
try to match their emotional state.
So it's not even like a dialogue tree.
Well, so the game defies description in a lot of situations. It changes what character you're following at regular intervals, and there's different mini games that are involved. But ultimately, it's a kind of a narrative game that is exploring sort of philosophy and psychology with this sort of sci-fi universe as its backdrop. And so a lot of the most interesting things about the game are in you understanding the conversations that you have in unique ways and being able to infer from the words that you've exchanged with another character certain things about who that character is and what their loves are and what they care about, and using that to move your story forward. It deals a lot with with ideas around artificial life and what makes us human and all these kinds of like really deep and unusual ideas, and has kind of a twist ending that's pretty fun. It's not like anything else I played this year, and I wasn't even aware of it. I love when I encounter stuff like that. It's like, wow, this is just awesome.
Is it exclusive on PC? Do you know?
I think it's only on PC
Okay.
that I'm aware
Yeah.
of. But I think it's worth a play for people. It's not super expensive to pick up on Steam, and I think if you're looking for something that is a little bit more thought-provoking, with some mature themes that ask you questions about the nature of morality, I think this one,
Red Strings Club.
the Red Strings Club.
There we go. Kim, number 2. What do you got?
Oh boy, it's kind of in the vein of what Miller said. If you like a story if you like good storytelling, Where the Water Tastes Like Wine.
Ah, interesting.
And I feel like this one, it came out early. Obviously, there is all that drama over how it did not sell well.
Well, I loved it because the developer was just brutally honest
Yeah.
and posted, said like, "Hey, we're dying over here," which is
Yeah.
awesome to see that transparency.
Well, it's awesome too, just to see like you're playing like as a character in the Depression era. You're walking around to different, towns, states, whatever, through the map. Kind of like you hitchhike, you go away, and you're telling story, and you're finding stories. You're hearing people's stories, and you're relaying those stories back to people. And sometimes you'll sit down at the campfire and meet someone, and it'll be like, "I want a funny story." And so a story that you might not necessarily think that is funny, you could turn funny, but you want to like match that up correctly. But it's almost cool because it comes like a game of telephone as you go through it, where like the stories get
Stories
changed
change, yeah.
over time. And I think it's just so cool to have this game like very much like folklore focus on the storytelling aspect and stick with it all the way through. And I just had fun like going through the map and visiting all these different places and finding people and interesting things going on, because you also like have to do odd jobs to like feed yourself and stuff and just get by. But it's very different, and I feel like it does what it does very well. So
Yeah.
That game fascinated me this year because it has different goals than most games
Yeah.
do. It's fun. I don't mean to suggest that it's like not enjoyable, but a lot of it is about trying to communicate in a sense of sort of loneliness and melancholy. There's this kind of gorgeous old Americana music that's playing as you're just sort of walking across hobo style across this empty landscape and occasionally encountering other lonely people. And so I think you have to be in the right mood to
I
tackle
play it before
Is that
bed.
in a good mood or a bad
No,
mood?
No,
I-
I
just to
actually
sort of,
play
like-
it before bed. It calms
Yeah.
me down. It's like a good like, I'm going to read some stories, hear some stuff, and just chill.
Have some wine and play it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, water tastes like wine.
Yeah.
There you go.
This wine goes down like water.
I wish water tastes like wine.
Great choice. Great choice. Mine, it's funny that the three of us line up this way because Red Strings Club, Water Tastes Like Wine, it seems like it's fitting a theme. Going with a WarioWare Gold.
I considered putting that on mine.
It's weird to put a WarioWare game on there, like first party Nintendo, but in terms of like Nintendo releases this year, it feels a little bit like Samus Returns last year, whereas the 3DS, that's the doghouse out back. Who cares? But, dude, WarioWare is objectively the best when it comes to like the greatest games of all time. It's chess, Tetris, and WarioWare are probably the big
This
three.
was only on 3DS, right?
Only on
Yeah.
3D.
Do you think
3DS.
they'll bring it to Switch?
You asked
Yes,
them that,
then.
Kyle.
What did they say?
That basically no is like the short
Aw.
answer because if they do WarioWare on Switch, they want to do a dedicated to that hardware,
Which
'cause-
they should.
Yeah, because I mean, it was that game is based all around the DS capabilities. It uses the microphone, uses the motion controls, uses the touch screen, and not all of it would translate to the Switch very
Right.
easily.
But you can also, what I love about it is you can section that off and not play the touch or the microphone or any of those freaky games and just have, as they call it, the mash section, where it's just the best of the
Yeah.
GBA games, right?
It was a weird one because like it wasn't one I pushed for our top 50 because it's a little bit of a remake, a little bit of a greatest hits, but there's enough new content in it where it kind of feels like a new WarioWare
Yeah.
game. It was like this weird middle ground, but yeah, it was super great. It's
It's
like
a good party game.
it's like the last 3DS game, honestly, maybe like the last true first party Nintendo.
Well, there's like Bowser's Inside Story remake and stuff
It's a
like that. But in
remake.
terms
Well,
of just
even
like
WarioWare is kind of a remake.
on your 3DS, a game that's always nice to have lying around, why not have the best WarioWare game ever made on your 3DS? Always handy. Until 2 years from now and the Switch version comes out. Although I saw like crazy sales reports that apparently no one's buying WarioWare Gold. I think it was like one of those like,
like it
in
didn't do that
England,
well?
yeah, we tracked yada yada yada, and it seems like it's vastly underperforming, which is
It's a
sad.
bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3DS still seems to be selling well, though, weirdly. I don't have any numbers to back that up, but like my
This seems pretty informed.
Yeah, well, like, but Black Friday at like the stores that I
We
went
don't
to,
need
like
facts anymore,
all
man.
the 3DSs were gone. Like,
Huh.
it seems like it's still selling.
And WarioWare was flying off the shelf?
I was sneaking it into people's bags.
Okay, thank God.
but
You got to play this poop mini game. It's so funny.
you gotta hold this microphone up to the gorilla. It's so funny.
All right, Kyle, what are we at?
One.
Good God.
One for fun.
I won't shut up about this game, Hanson.
Okay.
You'll never guess what it is. It's
Please.
I
Iconoclasts.
knew it.
Yeah.
I knew
Good
it.
game.
I adore this game. Came out, I think, in January. So it's another one of those like way back when. Remember that game that came out, but
So long ago.
you know what bummed me out is the Game Awards. They had their like best indie games.
Yeah.
and they had the Messenger on there, and they didn't have Iconoclast.
That's insane.
That bummed me out. I mean, the Messenger's fine, but
Messenger has more love than I
I
expected.
don't know why. It's fine, but Iconoclast is amazing.
All right.
So Iconoclast, I think you played it and you
did.
finished it, right?
I didn't finish it.
Oh, you did?
But
You
not
should
from
finish it.
lack of enjoying it.
Yeah.
Just I got pulled into some other reviews in
Yeah.
that part of the year. And
It's one that I would
haven't gotten back
encourage you
it
to,
yet.
if you get a chance, like
Yeah.
go back and knock out the last couple hours. But like it would be great as just like sort of a Metroid inspired pixelated indie game with cool music. It's got good level design, good puzzles, good shooting, good action. But the story is like really interesting, and they have this sort of religious authority called the One Concern that is like very
That's a good name for a religious
and
authority.
they're very overpowering. It infects like every element of life, and like there's like elements of people being experimented on, like to get like like Akira like powers, which I really get into.
It's sort of incongruous actually, and in a good way that you have this often bright aesthetic of this kind of like 16-bit
it starts
kind of,
even the soundtrack is very bubbly.
yeah, it's
in the
very
beginning.
bubbly and happy, like what you'd expect when you look at a game like, oh yeah, it's that kind of game. And then like the actual themes and story are very mature and
Yeah.
complex.
It's about religion and faith and stuff like that. And the ending is just, it's so good. I can't spoil it, but like it really calls into question like everything you've learned about the One Concern leading up to that point and their goals and how it has affected the planet it's so good.
Do you want to show us your Iconoclast tattoo?
Yeah.
Just reveal it
it's,
for the camera here.
it's just-
Oh,
there's
wow, look
Robin
at that.
holding her wrench right
Right
there.
on the hip. Pretty
Yeah.
cool. I
Great
love it.
characters, great story. I really love that game.
And it's on Switch, right?
it came out on Switch a few months later. Yeah.
Done deal.
Get it. Miller, you should finish it when you get a chance.
okay.
That
Miller,
ending's
number
great.
one.
I really liked Far Lone Sales.
This has been coming up more and more in the office.
This game's so cool. You are this little guy who, for reasons that there's not really any direct narrative, but you're living in a kind of a post-apocalyptic world of some sort. You're all by yourself. And as the game begins, it's like a side-scrolling game. You run to the right out of your house and you enter maybe something that's been there for a long time. Maybe it's something you built. It's not clear, but it's this massive contraption of a vehicle. And you head off into the wasteland trying to find something better.
And it's like a weird, what is that? Lovers in a Dangerous Space Time. You're like inside the
Yes.
vehicle running around.
You are.
except very much a single player game.
It's
Right.
it's a single player game, and it's all about these sort of individual moments of this journey as your character is trying to keep the vehicle together and keep it from catching on fire and keeping it to survive through lightning storms and hail and
maintaining fuel levels,
making sure you have enough fuel, and occasionally having to just stop and you have to get out and be like, okay, well, what do I do now and how do I keep going? And it's very very thoughtful and quiet at times, where you're just kind of like seeing the wheels turn as you go across this beautiful landscape. It's very interested as a game in the concept of scale and how small your character seems to be in the world. And so lots of times they'll kind of pan back and you see this vast kind of empty landscape that you're moving across.
So it's an adventure game?
it's a puzzle platformer.
Yeah.
Yeah. It falls in that genre of like Limbo, Inside,
Right.
and Gris recently, I would even say.
Yeah.
But like, I want to compare it to Gris a little bit. I haven't finished Gris. I've enjoyed what I played, but I haven't finished it. And one of the things that like Gris is very abstract and like to the point where like it's very dreamlike, and I don't know if I even exist in this world. But
Right.
the thing I really liked about Far Lone Sails is like it's a similar type of game, but that world, despite not really learning a lot about it, feels very grounded and
Yep.
like I feel like I could talk to the creators and they could tell me exactly what happened in that world.
Yeah.
What sort of companies or corporations existed there and like what happened. And like it makes it really fascinating. And I'm like it makes you curious about the world, but without the need to necessarily learn more. It's cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. As an example of like the moment that the kinds of moments that you would expect. One of the things I know this will sound like a really strange small thing, but one of the things I liked best was there's a point where my vehicle stopped and I had to go into a facility and do something to get my vehicle going or open a gate or something like that. And while I was in there, I found a radio. The radio was still picking up a signal of some like music, some like kind of jazz music that was playing. It was being broadcast from somewhere. And I could pick up the radio and bring it onto my vehicle and just put it down wherever I wanted, and I could still hear this jazz music. And then my vehicle got through the gate and I kept going. And slowly but surely over the next few minutes, the radio sort of fizzled out and faded away, and I couldn't hear it anymore. And like just that simple thing of this sense of like loneliness communicated by like, okay, well, there was the radio signal, but now we've moved on past that and we don't know what's in front of us.
Yeah.
Was really cool.
Yeah. Can we all agree, though? Worst name for a game in 2018? Far Lone
I know,
Sails?
it's not a great name.
Yeah.
That's tough.
I think here's my advice to indie developers: pick a word and just hold on to that word. I think that game would be better if it was just far.
Yeah.
It's just ungoogleably perfect.
Oh, hello, Zoolander.
Like I rarely think that a colon after the first word of a game title has ever made anything better.
This is a good question.
That's a great
I
question.
like Horizon a lot better than I like Horizon Zero Dawn.
There was already a game called Horizon, so
Well,
legally they couldn't call it
Sure, I
Horizon.
get that, but that's not my problem. Like, come up with a different word then.
Right.
My point is that, like, you don't need the colon. Don't try to get extra specific or try to get something else across. Find the word that says something about your game. Like Gris, right? Like, that's a weird one, but at least they were brave with it. And they just said, like, you know what? This is the name
What
of the
about
game.
the middle ground of games that should have a colon, but they've been dropping like flies? These colons have been dropping for the
Like
last
God of
5
War?
years in the game
Yeah.
industry. Well, no, not even that. But stuff like, God, I forget if this is an exact example, but like Assassin's Creed Odyssey,
Yeah,
I don't think they have a
a
colon.
lot of
No,
those-
no colon anymore.
That's a little different in that, like,
I
there's
know.
a franchise, right? And they need to have some sort of specificity. And once you get far enough in the franchise, it starts being stupid to use the numbers, as like Final Fantasy has learned to its detriment, right? Like
That's
once
its charm at this point. I feel like it looped back around, and
Yeah,
now people are
maybe.
into it for that reason.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't love the colons. I do like one of Kim's other games. Like, the exception to my rule is if you come up with a clever phrase where the water tastes like wine. is a beautiful name for a game,
Yeah.
right?
I'm going to name my daughter that. Yeah.
I think you should. Where the water tastes like wine at.
What's her
Yes.
nickname?
What's that?
Where the?
Where the?
Where the? Get over here.
That's a little wino.
Where's where the?
Anyways, Farland says, is it
Very cool.
still PC exclusive or is it on other stuff?
I think isn't it on Xbox as well?
I reviewed it on PC. I don't know that it has
I played it on
traveled
PC.
anywhere else.
Okay,
It should,
gotcha.
though. It's definitely a game that could work elsewhere.
Have fun, we'll travel. Kim, number 1.
Yes, speaking of a game with a subtitle that would drive you crazy,
Oh.
Sweary's The Missing,
Oh, God.
The Island of J.J. Mansfield, I think is what it is. Yeah.
The fact that we're not sure what the post
I
colon
don't.
thing
All I call it is The
very
Missing when I
telling.
talk
Yeah,
to people
exactly.
And that's
it
what
just
it should be
feels
called.
like
Call it
it
The
feels
Missing.
like a clunker to
Yeah.
say it.
The world just knows it as Sweary's little 2D game thing.
Yeah.
This game surprised me because I will be the first to admit I'm not the biggest fan of puzzle games unless they're super interesting. You have to really pull me in to make me spend the time because I'm not a patient person. And I remember Joe was talking about it and a few other people in the office were, and I was like, all right, I'm going to try it. Ben Reeves was. And I loaded it up with the intent to play like an hour or two. I finished the whole game in a day. It
Wow.
took me
Damn.
like 6 hours, but like I was then invested. So with The Missing, what's interesting in how you solve your puzzles is you dismember your body and the way that plays into the puzzle. So sometimes like you'll need to weigh something down by, going into a saw to get some of your body parts that land on this specific like scale weight or something, or you'll launch yourself up by doing that, or like the floor becomes the ceiling and turns upside down. Like there's just a lot of different ways to play it.
Sounds like it could be a great movie.
Yeah, it's a great, but it's a great puzzle game. It's like really fun. And then couple it off with like that narrative goes to places that I did not expect. And it's a very touching story. The game starts off with a very good message of like, you shouldn't be afraid to be who you are, and kind of it's staying true to you being like not being okay with embracing yourself and accepting that all people are different, but that doesn't mean that they don't deserve to exist or that you have to hide that.
Just because you're undead and missing your head and
you're
all of your
going to
limbs.
search for your friend, and so the story it's interesting how the story develops, and you see kind of like flashbacks from the main character's life, and then you start piecing things together, so that becomes almost a puzzle as you go. And you collect donuts, which has been like my life dream, so there you go.
You could collect donuts, Kim.
What's
Nobody's
stopping
stopping you.
My doctor is stopping me on that.
see.
What do they
She's
know?
trying to
Yeah.
decollect donuts, I think.
But
handing
no,
them out.
I mean
Handing out donuts?
it's
I
a
could be
puzzle.
okay with that.
It's a puzzle platformer, so you have stuff to collect, you have things to do. I think it's really interesting how you can come to the puzzle solutions. As somebody who's not the best at puzzle games, I'm not calling myself dumb, but I just don't have patience.
Yeah.
I
A
only
real
like
Ben
ran
Hansen in
into
that
like
regard.
one or two times where I really had to like think about it,
Yeah.
and it was like, okay, what am I supposed to do here? But I got it after a while. I remember being just so proud of myself because I don't like those types of games. I'm like, I got through this without
Yeah.
needing help on this and that, and
So
maybe I'm better than I thought at them.
I have it downloaded and I'm super excited to play it. And like the thing about sweary games in general is they're always like, it's great. But it like sucks
Yes.
to play,
Yes,
right?
yes,
It's like
yes.
Deadly Premonition, amazing, but like the driving and walking and every way you engage with that game sucks.
It's a nightmare.
And like D4 is like similar. It's like, it's like really weird and crazy, but like I don't want to. It's just a Connect game. I don't actually want to play it.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard that. But
this
for the
is
missing.
about the gameplay.
Like,
and
it sounds like it's
actually
solid,
fun.
right?
It will remind you kind of like an Inside type of game.
Yeah, I
or
need to
whatever.
play that. It's silly.
Yeah,
that
I think
haven't.
it's right up your alley, and like it does have this sweary like signature humor throughout with
yeah,
those twists,
but
like,
without the like shitty controls. Right?
yeah, and it also,
Love it.
but it also tells a very heartfelt story at the end, and
I
you're
like
kind of
those
just
too.
like, I just like the message of it, and I think everybody should play it. And I think it came out, and a few people it got some buzz, but it really, the time it came out, like not many people were talking about it, unfortunately.
Totally.
And you can get it on PS4, PC, Switch, I think Xbox One, so it's like on every platform almost.
Yeah,
So
I need to play it.
it's worth it.
The Missing. There it is. My number 1 is a game I've talked about way too much on the podcast as well. It's my Iconoclasts, I feel like, but I still love Wandersong. Jay
yeah.
reviewed it for us. I know that he gave it like a 7 because he was frustrated with some of like the platforming elements and stuff like that. But in terms of just, I have the Spectrum Miller. It's the almighty spectrum of.
I'm ready. Tell me about
It's a
it.
scientific equation.
Tell me where you are on
Wow,
the
Miller,
spectrum.
you sound genuinely
I get that a
interested.
lot.
Tell me where you are on the spectrum.
So here's how it works. It's a very easy spectrum. The closer a game is to the original Paper Mario, the just better that game is. And that's it. And Wandersong, very close. Not only
Yes.
because it looks like Terrence and Phillip for the overall art style and
Okay.
stuff, but just going on an adventure, meeting wacky characters. It's funny. The writing is great. Really, I was really thinking about it. Like in terms of like my favorite stories of the year, it's like, okay, obviously Red Dead, God of War. I think Wandersong is my third favorite. Like, I think the writing is so strong, and it builds. Like, it starts out where it's like, okay, I get it, save the world, whatever. And then it plays with those ideas, adds in some really interesting, twisted characters into the mix. Just, it's one of those games where as you're going towards the end, I have no idea where this is going to go. And also trying to figure out what each character is going for becomes such a complicated web, but it is so satisfying. I really love this game.
I played it in the office quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I literally laughed out loud at a few lines.
Oh,
It's
wow.
genuinely funny.
The writing is very Night in the
very
Woods.
good.
Like,
That is
it-
saying something to be fair.
If it's not
in
in
our
the woods
office,
writing,
like,
I'm all over it.
I mean, I wasn't like rolling on the floor. It was just
Yeah.
like one of these like, oh.
Yeah.
But I got a lot of those out of that.
And still think the most I laughed this year at a game, at a recurring thing, is you get different dances if you want along the way because Fortnite's huge or whatever. But there's just like the secret character in all the
Wandersong will be
areas.
sued by the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, whatever
right.
that guy's
But this
name-
character will give you different dances along the way, and one of them you get later on is just like this lasso dance that, again, every time you press triangle, he'll just do this dumb like lasso. Just the funniest thing. So you can just
do it like
walk
in the
through
middle of
world.
dialogue. Like
At
just
any
start
point you
dancing.
want, you can
Yeah.
just dance your way through this game, and it is an effing delight.
Well, it sounds to me like, thanks to this recommendation, it's going to be more popular than Fortnite in just a matter of a few weeks.
Absolutely,
It does have dancing in it.
Exactly. That's all you need.
I think so. Yeah,
that's
Forza
the
Horizon
magic
4 has
formula.
it. Hell, keep it rolling. There we go. Kim, I wanted to ask you, have you checked out this Crosscode game yet? I feel like it's up your alley, and it's one that I feel like as a unit we haven't really given too much time. I played like an hour and a half, but it's on Steam. It's one of those that the reviews for the people that have played it are just gaga over it.
Kim and I have spoken about this game because
Okay.
we want to take a look at it.
Yeah, it is
And-
Dot Hack meets Secret of Mana,
Right. Oh.
basically.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was a German Kickstarter project that
Yes,
just flew
yes,
under the
yes,
radar.
yes,
Remember
okay,
this now?
yeah,
We
yeah.
emailed about it.
Yes,
And so
yes,
we're gonna
yeah.
try to like look at it. We
Yeah.
have codes and all
Oh,
that
good.
stuff. so
Okay, good.
Yeah, I have it downloaded actually right now. It's on my list over the break.
It looks
Please.
really pretty.
It does. It does.
Yeah, it has a really
It
interesting
was one
look overall.
I organized the reader vote list. It was
Yeah.
one in the comments that people were like, "Hey, make sure you guys get this on the game of the year."
Oh, good. Okay.
So.
Yeah, Crosscode. And then Leo, surprise, Skater X. Do you want to talk about that?
Skater XL.
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 Get it
Okay.
right.
What is this?
It's a skate game in type, along the lines of a more grounded, realistic skateboarding game. But it has a really natural control scheme where you're actually using your back and forward foot are on different thumbsticks. And so you'll be
Okay.
spinning your back foot to do a shove it or kicking your left foot to do a kick flip. And then if you combine those two things, then it'll spin and flip at the same time. And so you can kind of figure out tricks that way.
So it's more complex than Skate, controls-wise.
Yes, but
That's
it feels
insane.
more natural because Skate, you have to check the trick list for everything, or at least until you get used to it. But this way, it feels you can really figure out how to do tricks that you're thinking of just based on how specific the controls get.
So I know you've been screaming for new Skate for a majority of your life at this point. Like, is this it? Are you officially happy?
I think I could be happy.
Wow. Leo can finally be happy.
But no, honestly,
Could.
it's still a big
is the
question of
operative word
yeah.
there.
what even is the career in this game? What is the campaign?
Because it's not like out.
No,
right?
it's in
It's
early
just
access.
playable.
It's just you can play in this tiny skate area.
Right.
Okay. Got
So
it.
there's not much to go on as far as what the real
This
game
is another game that we have some folks looking at right now. So.
Yeah, I think Kato's check it out. I think
Yep.
there should be a video on the site definitely by the time this podcast goes live.
There's
showing off.
another skateboarding game called Session, which is kind of trying to go in
Yeah,
that
I've
skate
heard about that
That's
one.
it.
mold, but I didn't find that as good. It was a little too hardcore almost. But
And-
this one, within 5 minutes, I totally got it, and I
Oh,
was really
awesome.
excited to play more of it.
And do we want to go into Tony Hawk's Skate Jam?
Yeah, let's. Okay, this is
just
the
came
skateboarding section.
Yeah.
Have you actually been playing
I
that?
played a little bit of it.
How is it?
It's hard to play a Tony Hawk game on the phone, but there is a full campaign there. Which is kinda
Really?
I was
interesting.
gonna say
Yeah.
it's hard to play a Tony Hawk game nowadays.
Oh, how
Period,
dare you.
yeah.
The how's the soundtrack?
It's pop punk stuff. I don't know. Tony Hawk selected it. I
Okay.
played it on mute while I was in the
Really?
office. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to.
So sad.
Turn
What
up the
are we-
volume and bug.
I don't want to listen to the
everyone on Play
music on a.
No, I do. I was the 30 minutes that I spent with it was in
Okay.
the office in the morning, and I didn't want to bother everyone
All right,
with
that's fine.
Superman's Goldfinger or whatever's on the soundtrack.
I get it.
Do we want? Can we talk bonus?
Yeah,
Bonus
hell
ones?
yeah.
I kind of just want to talk about it. I don't know if it's like underrated, but I think it's just like this is the good place to talk about it in terms
Yeah.
of wrapping up 2018. Do you guys remember that game Radical Heights?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
don't
Has
know.
there ever been a more like flash in the pan, like just come
It's
and
a weird,
gone? Like
it's a weird
immediately?
one to talk about because it doesn't exist
I
anymore,
know,
right?
it's weird. It was. There was elements of it I liked. Like I thought it was kind of cool.
What did you
But
like about it? This
I liked
BMX
that you when you jumped into the match, there was like no parachute or anything. You just like went straight down.
I still
like, right
think
into
Blackout
the,
should do that.
Yeah,
I still
just
don't know
get
the point
into
of the
it. And like,
parachute.
who cares about the realism? It's like, yeah, you're like jumping out of the sky. Like I don't need the like 20-second wait of like the parachute.
I think it's mostly so people can see when there are people in the area with them.
Right.
Yes.
But especially now with Blackout, not to shift the conversation, but now they have like the streak on your foot, so you can see exactly where everybody is
Yeah.
anyway. But that
But
alleviates
it
that.
was a weird thing where I was like looking. I was like, oh, what are some of the underrated games I was like played this year or missed? And like, it was that thing where I was like looking through old issue. I was like, oh my god, Radical Heights! I forgot that this was
I
a
forgot
year.
that existed.
I know,
It was-
everyone did.
It's kind of a sad story at the same time because
It is,
Cliffy
yeah.
B and Bosky overall. They released it, and I think everyone was like, "Oh, this is pretty early. This is janky. Early access, battle royale. Of course, you're getting in on that." And it's like, and then studio closes. So clearly,
Yeah.
it's like those guys were busting their ass to try and come up with a Hail Mary, and then
Yeah.
people pooped on a Hail Mary.
I mean,
which,
I was
poor
optimistic
form.
about it. Like I thought it could have been competitive in that world. Like it was kind of different and it was fun, but like it just exploded.
Yeah.
It's sad.
One that didn't explode because I don't think it was ever fully lit. I don't know what I'm saying, but
You'll fix it in
a
post.
game I really liked is a Raft on PC.
yeah.
It's another survival. Hey, it's a survival game, everybody. But it's cool because it's basically the fantasy that everybody's always had. All right, Miller. Every movie's on like a spectrum, right?
Wait a second. Can you go into this
And
a lot
then
more?
on one end of the spectrum is
Paper Mario.
Life of Pi.
Yeah.
And trying to that satisfying thing in Life of Pi where he's like building up the raft and
Yes.
I gotta dodge that tiger, all that stuff, and like getting pieces of garbage to like help build up the raft. That's a satisfying thing to watch. What if you could play it? That's what Raft is, right?
Yes.
Where it's a survival game where you need to eat and drink, but at the same time you have like a grappling hook and you're throwing it out into the water and trying to scrape in little ingredients along the way to build up your raft. And then there's also a hungry shark that'll come and just like bite the crap out of part of your raft and like rip off this whole section. You have to kill it with a spear over and over again. It's just a good Life of Pi rafting simulator in the ocean that I really
Poor
like.
shark.
There's been a lot of Life of Pi rafting simulators in 2018, though.
I mean, when Life of Pi came out, we just
Yeah.
that was the only movie we
was
talked
the
about
only
that
thing.
year.
Buzz,
Yeah.
buzz, buzz. That's great. Other things. Let's see. Northgard is a game we didn't talk about on the podcast at all. It's an RTS, but it's a really funky RTS. It's all like Viking themed, which I love. That's great. First
Vikings
two
are
ingredients.
huge this year.
It's massive.
Almost as big as Life of Pi simulators.
Absolutely. But the thing that's crazy about Northgard is that like it breaks up the entire RTS map into like different quadrants in a really funky way. Did you play it, Miller?
I did some writing about it, and yeah, it was.
It's a weird way to reframe RTSs in
Yeah.
your mind, but it's cool that they can have a spin on the genre after all these years, where it's like, okay, in this chunk of the map, you can only build this number of buildings and have this many units in that section.
It was a
at
very
a time.
creative attempt to reformulate the understanding of RTS.
Yeah, yes, that's a great way to put it. Also, they are billions. We didn't talk about too much, but in the RTS field as well, like a survival RTS where you just have to survive against a wave of zombies. Like, it was a really cool game, super early in the year.
My bonus game was Starlink.
Oh,
which
interesting,
Is a
yeah.
bigger game for sure than most of a lot of stuff we talked about today was kind of indie stuff. But Starlink just had the worst timing ever. I mean, like it came out around the same time as things like Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Spider-Man and stuff like that. And
And also
I-
like 3 years after the height.
yeah,
of
and,
Toys to Life
and a bunch of
excitement.
years after the hype had already died down on Toys to Life. But it's a really fun introduction to kind of sci-fi space adventure stuff. I think more people should play it. I mean, it really is almost, if you play it on Switch, you can play it as a Star Fox game where you play as Fox through the whole.
Just squint every once in a while, and then you'll feel like
You don't
it's-
have to.
You
You
don't
don't have to
squint at
squint.
all. Like you are playing Star Fox with his team, like going on a Star Fox adventure where you go to a different
You're controlling the
solar
R-Wing.
system.
Yeah.
Yeah, playing the R-Wing, and there's a way to play it without the Toys to Life
That's nice.
aspect of it. So It's a fun adventure. It would be a really fun family game to like play with your kids, I think.
Yeah.
So
Definitely a good one that'll go on sale probably
I would
quicker
think,
than you think.
I would think so too. I don't know for sure how that sold, but I suspect it wasn't great.
Yeah.
But this is not it's an important lesson to learn, I think. Something that didn't sell well doesn't mean that it wasn't worth playing.
That's true. God bless us, everyone.
Everyone.
That's great. Thank you so much for coming down. Kim, anything else you want to say?
No.
Do you want to wish people a happy New Year's?
Yeah, I guess I should do that, huh?
Everyone stay safe out there.
Yeah.
Right,
Happy
Kyle?
New Year.
Have a
Yeah,
good
do what
holiday.
you want.
Yeah. There it is. All right. And now, time for emails. Here we go. And welcome back to the Game Informer Show. We have Imran Khan Skyping in from beautiful San Francisco.
Howdy.
What's going on out there?
Literally nothing ever.
Great. We have Ben Reeves here.
How's it going?
And we have Brian Shea here.
Hey.
The holiday crew. Here we go. We have some wonderful emails that people wrote into podcast@GameInformer.com. And I know last week we said, hey, we got to do Podcast of the Year this episode. Then we got cold feet because what we have planned is so bombastic, so huge, and so not yet recorded that we decided to push it to next week. So next week's podcast is going to have Email of the Year, which is going to be gargantuan. So
What an
the
honor.
winner of this batch will be thrown into that pool. And again, podcast@GameInformer.com. Write in with thoughts, words of wisdom, comments, feedback, dares, bets, just smart thoughts, dumb thoughts,
Taunts.
jokes, taunts. Podcast@GameInformer.com. Anything that makes the show better. Then we'll choose our favorite email, and they will have a chance to win their spot on the big board. We'll honor their homeland. Okay, you guys, ready? A while ago, we were talking about, hey, what's up with Alaska? Why doesn't anybody write in from Alaska? Jacob and Jeremy both wrote in from Alaska with wonderful emails. We recommend they get to know each other.
That's a small
They probably
state.
do, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, here we go. First real email is from Guy from Brazil, friend of the show. He says, hey, if someone would like to get into Red Dead Redemption right now, would you recommend them to start with the first or the second one? Which series do you think it's better to play or watch through release date versus chronological order? Personally, I'm always pro release date order, but I'm not sure about Red Dead.
I've thought about this a lot, actually.
Really?
Because after finishing the epilogue and like the main story of Red Dead 2, I'm like, all right, everything that happens in Red Dead 1 would have so much more weight to it, and like the whole, like all your interactions with Dutch and
That's spoiler
yes.
free. Just heads up.
Yeah.
Try to be spoiler free.
I'm not going. I don't think it's a spoiler to say that Dutch is in the first
What?
game as well.
No, I totally hear you. I think it's probably a sign that you should start with the second one because, like, I did the same thing. Where right after finishing Red Dead 1, I was like, I need to go back and watch so many of those cutscenes from Red Dead 1, and it was so fun to have like that new view on certain lines,
Yeah,
throughout the entire
absolutely.
thing. And why not be different at this point? So with Red Dead, don't go chronological. I would say start with Red Dead 2, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Maybe. I
Imran-
don't know. I would say start with 1.
Whoa.
I think it's the better game still, but
I think it's the better game as well, but also I think it might be difficult to go back after playing Red Dead 2 to the mechanics of Red Dead 1.
So that's why you'd start with Red Dead 1, is what Reeves is saying.
yeah, why would it be hard?
Just because it's 8 years of advancements, even though like people are criticizing Rockstar for Red Dead 2's.
Except that gameplay's so dated, it feels
Yeah,
like
that's what
All
people are
right,
saying.
all
But
right.
I think there are actual improvements to like, the gameplay. I can't cite specific examples because I haven't played Red Dead 2 in 8 years or Red Dead 1 in 8 years. But
This story's a
Well,
little
thanks
bit
for
full of
your
holes.
thoughts, Imran.
Imran, have you played Red Dead yet, Imran?
Yeah, I have. I got to about chapter 6 before I stopped, I think.
Okay, no spoilers, but just weren't a fan?
I wasn't feeling the movement of the game, and also I think at some point I had to do a very long stage again, or long mission again.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll play this another day when I'm not incredibly frustrated by it.
I mean, chapter 6 is pretty far in there, though.
Yeah.
Like, you dedicated some time.
I wanted to, because everyone was praising the game, so I'm like, there has to be something here that I'm missing. And I just kept playing, and everyone was like, okay, chapter 5 is when it really gets good. So I did. I was like, this is fine, but I think I like the first game a lot more.
I get it. Well, look, there's no room for cynicism on this show because this is the Game Informer show and we love games here, which is why the next email from Zane from Marble Falls, Texas is perfect. He says, hey, Ben and fellow informers, with all the talk of the best games, I would like to ask what your opinions are of your least favorite games of the following franchises. This is a fun question.
I
Wait,
like
so we're not
questions like
ranking
this.
them.
We're just
No, just the number
Least favorite.
one least favorite
All right.
out of all this stuff. This is so good. I've read thousands of emails sent into podcast@gameformer.com, podcast@gameformer.com, podcast@gameformer.com.
What's the
Newbies
address?
welcome, podcast@gameformer.com.
Okay.
But never, I don't think. Okay, so here we
Is
go.
that a spoiler for next week? Like this is gonna take it?
I don't want it in my hand.
Ooh.
It's very good.
First has to win this week.
Least favorite in the franchise, Smash Brothers.
Oh, least favorite.
Brawl.
Yeah.
Brawl.
Or
Brawl?
3DS, maybe.
Oh, 3DS is a good one too. Like,
oh, man.
Dude, you guys are nuts. I mean,
You're saying
nostalgia.
64?
It's 64.
Yeah, I was gonna say 64.
I think to play right now, I would say 64 is the worst.
Yes.
But if we're going
it's probably the question that he just asked.
but at the time,
Well, no, it's least favorite. Which,
at the
Oh,
time, I
okay.
would say Brawl was the game. Like at time of release, I would say Brawl is the game I liked the least.
yeah, but 64 is your least favorite, dude.
no, but it is tough. Like, because Brawl, it gets such a bad rap now. I feel like especially it has become like the odd duck of the batch, right? But at the same time, when it came out, I barely even noticed the tripping. And I know I'm not a hardcore Smash player, but playing amongst friends, like Brawl was still a revelation.
It was also that was the start of like the roster getting huge. It felt like there was a
Right.
huge roster back then.
Snake was so exciting back then.
That was awesome,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
A lot of cool things.
But,
But
64.
least favorite, you have to factor in nostalgia.
I think you're right, Shay.
So if you're saying what the worst game is, I would say 64.
Right.
But least
I mean, there's a lot of people who still like 64, like in a tournament setting, because they kind of went down on combos and hitstone after a while. So like Brawl is the first game that's less of a fighting game than Melee and 64 were.
Okay. Yeah, I guess at least favorite. You're right. That is nostalgia include. I'd still probably say 64.
Okay.
I probably played the least 64.
Well, I played the hell out of 64.
Look, we all played the hell out of everything, but yeah.
I'm going in 64 too.
All right, Imran, definitive?
I'm probably still going to say Brawl. Like, it
Okay.
had the most game, but it was probably the one I enjoyed the least.
Okay, that's fair. All right, here we go. These are good heavy hitters. Legend of Zelda. Least favorite.
Are we
Triforce
only saying
Heroes.
mainline games there, or is it like every Zelda game?
Let's say mainline.
Okay.
Yeah, so no Triforce. That makes
Zelda
it more
2.
interesting. I think I'd go Zelda 1.
Oddly enough, I kind of like those. It's just nostalgia, so I'm gonna go Skyward Sword.
Skyward Sword was up there for me as well.
I like Skyward Sword more than I like Twilight Princess.
Ooh.
Twilight Princess is the bottom of your heap.
It's still a great game. It's like a strong like 8.5 or whatever on a
It's not what I read in my
incredibly
magazine.
good list.
Yeah.
It's just I remember so much about that game just not enjoying it, and I don't think I could go back to. I went back to it with the HD stuff, and I was like, I got bored about 3 hours in.
Yeah.
Now, because I'm a Zelda fan, I'm curious what all of your favorite Zelda game is.
Breath of the Wild.
Same.
Yeah, probably right now, Breath.
I still list it as Ocarina. But
Ocarina
Breath of the
was
Wild's
before,
way up
yeah.
there.
Yeah, on paper it's Ocarina, but in your heart, you know it's Breath of the Wild. Come clean.
One of the two. Yeah.
All right.
Reeves, we haven't talked about it yet, but if you just listen to the show, you should know that Reeves has a Tom Selleck-esque mustache.
Respectable.
Yeah?
Good
Where's that
description.
coming from?
My face? What do you mean?
No,
Why did I grow it out?
I don't get it. Like, is the hair in your mouth and then it slowly pushes through your upper lip?
Yeah,
or
that's
how
where it
does
comes
that-
from.
Okay.
No, my dad had a mustache growing up too, and kind of looked like Tom Selleck, I thought. Speaking of. So, and it was weird when I was like 12, he shaved it, and I was like, what? Like, I've never seen you without facial hair. So,
So you're
Well, I thought
trying
you
to
meant when
become-
he was growing up, he had a mustache.
yeah.
I had one when I was 11. I'm not joking.
Are you
I had,
serious?
I had to
No,
shave
when
at
I
a
was
very
11.
early age as well.
Good God, Imran, you're too much man over there. What is happening? Is that a hint that you're becoming a father, Reeves?
No hints.
Okay, all right.
My wife had a beer last night, I think.
Here we
Which
go.
could mean a lot of things.
Final Fantasy, everybody. Least favorite Final Fantasy. Mainline only. You can't say Dissidia 3 or
Do the
whatever.
online games count? The MMOs?
God,
like the
that's
weirdo ones?
let's disregard the online ones as well to make it more interesting.
I'd honestly say, like, even including the online ones, 14 is really good.
Yeah, we're looking for least. Looking for least.
Least I would say 3, probably.
Okay.
3 NES, because the DS game fixed
Right.
some things, but
Yeah.
original release on the NES was kind of bad.
I haven't played like the first 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So I'm going to
Yeah.
go with 15.
Oh, that's
Wow. Of the ones
I was
I've-
pretty disappointed by 15, too.
I loved 15. Of the ones I've played, I would say 12 is probably the one I bounced off of the quickest.
Boing.
I'd like to play Zodiac Age 'cause I hear it fixes a lot of stuff, but we'll see.
It's still 12 ultimately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like of the ones that I've played, because I'm sure I've started all of them at this point, but like really tried to get into, I think like 13 is the one that I maybe made it 2 hours in. I was like, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out, Jerry.
13.2 I really don't like that much either.
Okay.
But I don't know if that counts as a main line or a spin-off.
Landing Returns, spin-off. All right, God of War. I'll go with the 3 as my least favorite.
I've played very little God of War outside of this year.
Okay.
So I'll say 1.
Yeah, I was going to go 1, 2. We're not counting the PSP
Ascension.
No,
ones.
let's keep it pure.
What about
Let's keep it
Ascension?
pure. Ascension counts.
That should count.
I never played it.
I didn't
though.
play it though. So.
Imran?
I didn't really like any of them until the reboot.
Okay, I'm with you ultimately. All right, Super Mario. This needs to be main of the main line. And look, this
We've
is
had
going to
the
be a
debate.
messy debate about what counts as mainline Mario.
Sunshine.
Is your least favorite?
Yeah, definitely.
Probably leaning that way as well. I'm trying to think of what else I could be forgetting. Maybe does this Lost Levels count?
No.
No, I wouldn't
That's
count that.
mainline in Japan.
Yeah, okay. Where do you live, buddy?
I'm telling you.
I'm going with, I guess, 1. Well,
Yeah,
actually, 2 I don't understand. I've never finished.
2's kind of cool. Like you
I
should go back
know.
and play it. give
1
it
and
a shot.
Sunshine are right there, I think, for me.
This is a weird answer, but yeah, I'm going to go with 1. Even
I don't
though
know that I
it's
can actually like
a classic.
quantify the quality of 1. Like it's so
Yeah.
it's so old, it's so iconic, it's so legendary, but I don't know that I could ever have an objective look at that game.
Well,
Yeah.
what it did for the industry, it's almost not fair. But if you're just going favorite,
Yes.
Yeah.
like what would I play today? 1's probably the last one I would play.
I think 1's probably my answer when you put it that way, because I'd like to go back and try Sunshine again, but it's kind of hard to since I don't have a GameCube connected to the TV.
Yeah.
If they put out like an HD remake of Sunshine on Switch next year, I would totally play it.
Absolutely. Chris Craven from Lafayette, Indiana says, hey, Ben and crew, a while ago on the podcast, somebody pitched an idea for a game in which you start off powerful and have to give up power as the game progresses. Well, there's a game released this year called exactly that, or that is exactly that. It's called Sinner Sacrifice for Redemption.
Yeah.
Didn't you talk about this on the podcast a while ago, Shay, from like PAX or something?
I think it might have been Imran, actually.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
we played it at GDC.
Yeah, we played it at I watched you play some of it at GDC, but it looked pretty cool.
Oh, there we go. He says it's an
Yeah.
indie boss rush Souls game where you have to level down after beating a boss in order to fight the next boss. So there we go. That's that
cool.
exact
So I
idea
may
somebody
have talked
wanted.
about it since I saw Imran playing and
Maybe.
like, watched him for a little bit, but yeah.
Also confusing Tyler from the currently ungodly country of Rhode Island, yes, says, hey, talking about that God of War game where you power down, please check out the book Pathfinders by Mike McGinnis. I recommend LeVar Burton Reads Episode 10 for an audio version of the book. He says it's very good. So people were really inspired by that random email a couple weeks ago, but 2 examples.
That's cool.
Scott, have you guys ever listened to that LeVar Burton Reads thing?
No.
It's weird, it's just a podcast where it's just him reading audiobooks, and it just
Yeah, it
it
works.
fills you full of reading rainbow jollies.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Oh, what's
Perfect.
weird is he didn't read the books on Reading Rainbow though.
Didn't he?
No, it was always like a kid reading it.
Wait, for like the VO?
I'm pretty sure.
No, I don't think it was a kid. Leo, can you pull up any clips from Reading Rainbow when they're reading the books? I love like just the cheap Ken Burns effect of just like zooming in on the same picture over and over again for those books in Reading Rainbow. That's a good show.
I like that show.
I
It
have
ran
not watched that show in a long
forever.
time.
Yeah.
It was always cool too because he would always like go somewhere cool. It was like I remember one where he was just hanging out at night with like the like radio hosts that do the night shift, the third shift.
Oh, that's
It's like,
cool.
oh, that's kind of cool.
I remember one where he went to, someplace in the American Southwest where they just have a million satellite dishes, like trying to contact
Oh, yeah, I
alien
think I
life and
remember that
stuff.
one, too.
And then they showed a clip from Star Wars, like the cantina
Oh,
scene,
I remember
and then
that
it cut
one.
back to him, and he was like laughing his ass off. But like, oh, those wacky
What a great
aliens."
joke.
The other weird one was when he went behind the scenes with like the Star Trek Next Generation and like showed how the transporters work. and
That
stuff
one
like
was really long. That was
Yeah.
weird. And he never got around to reading a book, now that I think about it.
Yeah, that's right.
Confusing. Scott from Missoula, Montana. Hey, Missoula, I know that. He says, hey, I was listening to another podcast. What? And a question came in about wearing video game themed apparel. And I was curious what your personal stance on it was. I'm simultaneously for it and against it since I think people should be able to wear whatever they want, but I'm also a monster who thinks people shouldn't wear their personality or socially signal with what they wear. I'd be more interested in subtle designs, but most seem overt. Look at me, I'm a gamer. What do you guys think about gaming clothes? As Ben Reeves wears a Metal Gear Solid
I think it needs to have some taste to it. You know, it can't be like a shirt that just says like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like if I've ever
I'm
been at
game for anything.
if I've been to like a Kohl's and I've seen it, like they're the least subtle gaming shirts ever.
I think
Yeah.
90% of the gaming shirts out there are bad.
Yeah.
Straight up bad. And I think totally wear whatever you want. I have a bunch of gaming shirts, but I think they're all good ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they're not very stylish most of the time. And I think you should at least try to look nice.
I guess. It's that tough middle ground. Do I like the game enough where I'll wear this even though it's distracting? You know, like I got a Hellblade t-shirt and it's just like Senua's big face where it's like,
Right.
I don't know. People are going to ask me about this. If anyone's going to ask you about the shirt, I don't want to wear it. Is basically
If a publisher gives you the shirt, then it's probably bad.
Usually.
Yeah, that's interesting.
There's a
criteria.
few rare good ones. I think Bungie makes some decent shirts.
Oh, I thought you meant rare.
Yeah.
Rare. They make rare shirts, yeah.
I got into a big argument once, and it got surprisingly heated with a friend about like I don't like gaming stuff on my stuff. You know what I mean? Here's a dumb example. If I like have a bag to like carry stuff in just in my life, I don't want a big picture of Mario on the side. And this friend of mine's like, well, of course, it's gaming, it's fun. Of course you want that stuff. It's like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ashamed to be a geek, but like I just don't want. Just give me a bag, and I don't want anything close to that.
Honestly, before this job, I used to not wear gaming stuff at all. Now it's like I pretty much have license to. Like this is a Mega Man shirt right here.
There we go.
Because like I like wearing this stuff because I like this, like the actual licenses.
Yeah.
And if I'm trying to look nice, obviously I'm not going to wear a gaming shirt. But if I'm just going out, whatever.
I want to look cool first. And I love it when it's super subtle. Like there in Japan, I saw this shirt. It was just a really stylish girl holding an umbrella, like on the shirt. Like it was a printed shirt.
Yeah.
But the umbrella was the umbrella symbol from Resident Evil. And that was all that was the
That's
only
good.
reference
That's good.
at all to Resident Evil.
So what was it a shirt for?
It was for Mario Party.
Oh, okay.
You two are smooth operators. I just like that funny thing of you talking about like I just need it to look cool, and meanwhile like this is a 73-degree studio, and you're wearing the puffiest Metal Gear Solid vest I've ever seen in my life. It's very cool.
This is style.
Alan Cooley from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Oh, by the way, Leo, did you learn anything about Reading Rainbow?
Yeah, you want to listen to some Reading Rainbow?
Yeah.
Penguins.
What?
A
So it's LeVar Burton.
cluster of grapes. The pictures are very colorful. The best part of the book
What?
is the picture of the coven of
Reading
witches.
Rainbow, is it?
This book has a beautiful
Season 6,
sense
episode
of
3,
words and rhythm.
The robbery
I
at the
enjoyed it.
Diamond
You
Dog
will,
Diner.
Oh,
This
that's
is her just reviewing a book.
Greetings,
Oh, wait.
ladies and gentlemen.
Well,
My
this
name
is-
is Mishak Watson.
This is just
and
where they
I
would
am
review
chef
the
for
books.
today.
Yeah.
This is not LeVar Burton, now that I listen to it.
Leo, I like it. Like I'm happy playing an entire episode of Reading Rainbow.
Me too.
I forgot that they would read it like that. It was always. Do you guys have this big thrill too? Whenever they'd read a book on the show, it was like, I have that book.
No.
I did not have that many books, so that did not happen to me.
I was a rapacious reader. Is that the
Oh.
right word?
Sure.
And so you went into video.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, writings is the worst. Adam Sari from Stormville, New York. Stormville, New York. It says.
That's a cool name.
I think so too.
I would love to write that on my return address in the one letter I send a year.
Hey, Ben and crew. Microsoft buying up new studios has seemed to give people a lot of hope for the future of games on Xbox, especially heading towards a new console cycle. It has very much done the opposite for me. Xbox has consistently been a bad partner to studios in the past. Some examples of failed ventures and soured relationships include the canceling of Fable Legends, shutting down Lionhead, canceling of Scalebound, Phantom Dust, not to mention the exclusivity deals with Rise of the Tomb Raider, Titanfall, Sunset Overdrive. None of these game studios had anything good to say about Xbox after that exclusivity window. After this, I'm worried that Xbox doesn't have a games problem, but a relationship problem. They just don't treat their developers well. Should I be worried about this?
Don't forget that Bungie also has the PS4 deal for Destiny every single time there's new content.
That is the weird deal. It is weird for Microsoft that both Bungie and, on a much smaller scale, Twisted Pixel got out of their grasp.
Yeah, like we got to get out of this. Now that we're a part of this big company that has all the money
Right.
in the world that they can use to make our games great, we got to get out of here.
But at the same time, I kind of sort of trust Ninja Theory with their messaging, and it was interesting that in their pitch, I think they released this video on their YouTube channel talking about the decision to be acquired by Microsoft and to sell out to the man, you know? And they said hey, Microsoft said, hey, if you don't trust us, we won't join you for these trips, but we encourage you to visit any Microsoft studio and just have a candid conversation with them. We won't be there.
Right.
You know? And they said they did that and everyone had good things to say, and that's why they decided to buy in.
And in the Obsidian or it was either Obsidian or In Exile when they were acquired, they were like, yeah, Microsoft told us that we're going to continue operating as we operate, and they're just going to kind of be there helping us out when we need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Obsidian has 2 PS4 games in the future. Microsoft's not really holding them back from that stuff.
yet.
Well, they're
but-
going to finish out those contracts, but yeah.
Well, that's the weird
Yeah.
thing too. Is like, Imran, what do you think will happen if Outer Worlds is a big success, which it probably will sell well, right? And they want to make an Outer Worlds 2. Can they do that? Do you think?
If they want to, I mean, Outer Worlds is being published by Take-Two, so
Right.
whatever Take-Two says, I'm sure Take-Two won't be like, yeah, we're not making it only exclusive to Xbox. That's crazy. Like, when talking about Microsoft, it's important to note that history doesn't matter that much because they've gone through 3 or 4 major transitions in the last decade.
Right.
And like now it's Phil Spencer kind of being from an executive role within Microsoft as like one of the higher ups in the actual company as a whole,
And Matt
like running
Booty,
Xbox
right?
from there. So
Yeah.
what they do now, that's still an open question, but I don't think it makes sense to look at what they've done in the past.
But it wasn't that long ago, you know, and it's not like Scalebound is an exact example of like, oh, we knew Microsoft mistreated them. Maybe the project just didn't come together. You know, you never know what that could be specifically.
Yeah, it's hard to say like what happened with Scalebound, but a lot of those other examples are sort of old. Like,
Yeah.
it does feel different now because Phil Spencer hasn't been in his current role for that long enough for things to have changed, and I think we're just starting to see the ship change.
Yeah, and it's so
You know what I
tough to
mean?
try and get a read on this. Yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, I think we all think Phil Spencer's good at messaging, and we all inherently like him when he talks. Seems like he understands the games. He's rooting for Rare just as much as we are. You know what I mean?
And I would say Xbox One has been substantially better under his guidance than Don.
Right, compared to Matrick. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, they have a first-party problem, but they realize they have a first-party problem, and it's not
Yes.
something that gets fixed even within like 3 or 4 years. It gets fixed over like a decade.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going to take a while for this to change. And it seems like they're heading the right direction.
And I do love that we brought it up at the Game Awards episode where it was like, yeah, we did good. We could do better.
Right, could do
Right.
better. Yeah, it's weird too, going back to the interview we did with Fergus from Obsidian, because even in that interview on this show, and he's talked about other places too, it was a lot of him just venting about trying to get Stormlands up and running, which was their RPG that was going to be an Xbox One launch title, and just like the pressure for Microsoft to include Kinect, and basically just jumping through Microsoft's BS hoops at the time.
Right.
And so now it's like that weird full circle of, hey, and now it's your new big daddy. Hope you're happy with it.
I will say I've talked to developers who have not been super kind about Microsoft in the last couple of years, and they've turned around a lot. Like they've been saying they expect Microsoft to be a major force next generation.
I agree. I think they're going to do
think
great.
so.
Kyle says, hello, GI crew. How's it going?
Pretty good.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Great.
Good.
I watched the Jeep Gladiator event at the LA Auto Show for a few weeks ago and was blown away. I couldn't get enough. It made me want to buy a Jeep. No, I don't. It reminded me of E3 and the awesome press events. This is what other industry would you like to work in or cover as a journalist? It's Kyle from Stowe, Vermont. What do you guys like? Do you ever go to a big event like that and it's like, oh, this is like their equivalent of E3. This is other industries have fun too.
Yeah. I've been to Comic-Con a couple of times, and that's probably one of my favorite just cons to go to.
Yeah.
Comic-Con's fun.
Yeah, I would. Speaking of, I'd probably love to work in the comic book industry on some capacity. I
Okay.
think that'd be fun to.
Yeah, I always we both listen to a lot of Kevin Smith's podcast, and every time he always talks about working with IMDb and interviewing celebrities and directors on like the IMDb boat, as he talks about, it's like I think I could do that. I think I'd like to do that. I think I know film well
Yeah,
enough. Like
film.
I could talk about some dorky Marvel stuff on stage. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I mean, probably either music or MMA for me.
Oh,
Why not
combine them.
both?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Maybe combine them both. Imran?
What's that second M stand for?
I went to school for politics, like learning how to write for newspapers and learning about politics. And like, if I ever wanted to get out of this industry, that's probably what I get into.
Really? Politics?
yeah.
Huh?
Are you overqualified for your job?
Don't tell anybody that.
Is
That
it a-
could be bad for me.
Interesting. KCM from Tampa, Gunning for God's Country, you tell us, says, hey, Benny and the Hendersons. Very funny. I'm sitting here listening to the Below interview with Chris Piotrowski after Dan Tack's 7.5 review has come out, and it feels kind of weird. I know 7.5 shouldn't be considered bad at all, but is it ever weird for you guys, or specifically Hanson, when you interview a developer who seems very excited and passionate and eager to release the game that they obviously think is good, to then have that same game be reviewed as middling or average? Does that ever inform interview questions going forward with other developers? Are developers generally understanding ambivalent about meh reviews, or has anyone given you any crap for it?
I don't think I've ever gotten crap from anyone. I think a lot of times I did a piece for a competing website before I joined.
Say the name.
IGN.com.
Neat. Love it.
And it was about how review scores affect developers. And one of the quotes was from Drew Holmes, who did BioShock Infinite and Far Cry 5, and he was
Yeah.
talking about Red Faction Armageddon, which he also wrote. And he was like, yeah, most of the time when you're putting out a bad game, you're pretty aware of it. Like, you know way before it launches that it's probably not great.
Right.
And then, like,
you hear that message, but then you also hear the message a lot of, we were too numb, we had no idea.
Yeah,
it's the weird
probably
50-50
completely fair
split,
as well.
you know?
But yeah, it's and that was another thing. A PR person I interviewed for that said that it's he thinks it's part of like the PR person's job to kind of like say, hey, just so you know, like this probably isn't going to review. It's not going to get 9s or whatever. Like
Right.
manage their expectations before release.
Which is another reason why I kind of call BS thinking about that Corey Barlog, him looking at the reviews for the first time in that video where he cries and stuff. It's like, I'm so confident that Aram over at Sony gave him a little bit of a heads up. Said like, hey, we're looking good with these mock reviews. Like, there's some indication.
I think
right?
it's also like it's real now, you know? Like,
that could be. I just don't understand emotions, I guess.
Like, it's like when you're applying to college, it's like, oh, you're a shoo-in for that. But then when you get the acceptance letter, you're like, oh,
You're right.
It's real.
Yeah, you're totally right.
But I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this question, Anson. Just because, like, you tend to do these interviews before the game's out, so you don't always
Right.
know the, like, review. Like, what the
Yeah.
review is when you do the interview.
Well, I think one of the weirdest ones this year was Shadow of the Tomb Raider, right?
Sure.
Where I think they reached out and said, like, hey, do you want to talk to somebody about Shadow of the Tomb Raider? And it was like, yeah, sure. By the time that interview got lined up then, it was also the same episode where we were talking about it on the show. And so it's just that tough thing of like, well, how do you frame this? And then also, like, the brand guy was on the line, which made the messaging a little bit bizarre. We also had the narrative guy on the line, but it was just this. It was the worst combination. I feel bad about that interview for listeners and viewers because it was like I hadn't played the game yet. We had a brand guy on the line. The narrative guy, there were interesting questions to ask him, but I didn't know what to ask him. And then the segment before, it was a lot of Kim talking about how she was so disappointed in the game. And then to transition immediately to them talking about like, this is the culmination of Laura's adventures. It's a real rockin' fest. It's like, that's a crappy tone. There's no information getting out here, you know?
That's kind of a weird transition there, but I think most of the time it's not easier because it's always hard to be like, hey, so your game wasn't well received. How do you think about that? And but it's like easier to come up with questions because you can ask about specific criticisms. Like we have a whole section in our magazine about it afterwards where if a game isn't well received, you know, they may not be super excited to talk about it. But like if we get somebody who like, you know, if say we did Fallout 76 afterwards, which I don't think we're getting anytime soon, but if we did, that would be a really interesting interview because we could ask about like some of these criticisms and the road ahead. And I think those interviews are actually more interesting than like, hey, your game was awesome. Tell us more about this story.
Right. Another weird example of interviews involves you, Shay, where you're playing ukulele for review, I think. And I think I asked you like, hey, how is it? And you're like, I really like it so far. I was like, great. Okay, I got to go do an interview with the team that made it, right? And then we interviewed them on the podcast. There's this weird thing where, like, in my mind, it's like, oh, they pulled it off. It's great. So the tone of that interview is very much like, congratulations, you guys. I guess you did it. Well done. You captured the 64 stuff.
Oh, boy.
And then, like, your review and the rest of the reviews hit, and it was like, oh, never mind. Like, that interview could have taken a different tone.
I wonder if you got to me before that weekend where I'd put in about like 30 hours.
Yes.
And I was just like, wow, this is really a collectathon that even puts like Banjo-Kazooie to shame.
Right. But yeah, you're totally right. On the afterwards front, like even talking to them before the game comes out, there's always interesting stuff to ask about. And hopefully we can pry some knowledge out of these super smart game developers that isn't dependent on the game's quality necessarily. You know what I mean?
I think that's my thing is like whether or not the game is good or bad, usually the process of making a game is interesting. And so just to like talk about that.
Yeah.
Talk about interesting things with interesting people. That's what I always say.
Every game is interesting.
That's right.
That's why usually like in interviews I go with, so why did you guys come to this decision? Or how did you end up deciding to do this?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
That's like, it's a much better way than saying, hey, I didn't like this part I just played. What's up with that?
Do you ever find yourself doing the cop-out thing that I do all the time of like, what would you say for people that have the reaction of this? You know what I mean? And then it's just you channeling.
It softens the blow.
It sucks to do it, but I do it all the time.
I mean, I don't think that's uncommon in other industries either. Like podcasts I listen to, when they have interviews on and there's something along those lines, they use that method.
Yes, I think so. Like, you know, hyper-partisan interviews as well, when they're like, clearly want to voice the other side, and so they have to couch in that same way of like, a lot of people on the other side of the aisle are saying this.
Yeah.
How would you respond to that? You know. Anyways, interviews are fun. Timothy Pazdiziorni from Gloucester, Massachusetts. Hello. It says, hello, Andy in the Game Informers. What the hell? He says, opening up this month's issue of Game Informer, I see the first feedback question talk about dreams. And it reminded me of your coverage of the game, heralding it as God's gift to the video game industry, correct?
That was our tagline.
Yep. Well, I generally enjoy Game Informer's positivity when it comes to games. I thought Game Informer's painting of dreams was a bit too hyperbolic. That's not to say it won't be a great game, but I have seen a fair amount of games over the last few years with impressive user-generated content systems that feed the communities for years, but with scant coverage outside of YouTube videos showing off individual levels. My question is, yes, it will be a great mode, but honestly, do you think this will garner any kind of attention outside of its own community like Game Informer's coverage seems to suggest? P.S. When is Game Informer coming to the Switch? I don't know if one conversation's ever been had about that, but that would be very cool to get digital on Switch.
I wonder
be
if
awesome.
Andy's thought about it or talked about it.
I'm sure he's thought about it.
He's probably thought about it. Yeah.
I don't know. But dreams. I like this email because I like just being realistic. Totally. We can really daydream. We talked about it earlier in this episode about talking about, oh my gosh, I'm sure the Labo community is going to be thriving. They're going to be making weird stuff, and you just never hear about it. And I hope that's not the situation with dreams. But, okay, Imran, 1 year from now, assuming it's out, 1 year from now, what do you think will be like the level of dreams, hype or communication out there?
I think there will be a very diehard community, like a subreddit or something, that is making incredible things. But I think by and large, it's going to fall into the same trap most of these things do, that not everyone is interested in playing everything or making particularly good or complicated things. And that sucks, but I'm sure they're aware of it.
They're very aware of it. And they have ways of working around it where they're going to have like weekly challenges where it's like, just make any music whatsoever and then compete with your friends. And like that is a hook. If that hook doesn't get you, then you're screwed. You know what I mean? But I do think that's a smart, just super low stakes way to get people inching forward where it's like, hey, sculpt a hamburger, go. And the idea of competing with my friends in that, I think I'm into it.
I mean, I think the closest we'll ever come to having a create your own content thing go mainstream was Mario Maker, and even that fell off after a while.
Yeah, I was trying to see if there was a comparison with even like Minecraft, because there was a lot of people like doing stuff in Minecraft and making their own stuff, and like maybe there's that kind of like comparison.
That's more like a build your own town or view
just
or
creativity.
something. Yeah,
they're creating things and they're sharing them.
I think Dreams are going to be very exciting for that tiny, passionate community. I do think it'll still bubble out. I think such a strong majority of those games, I think, are going to be pretty good little game jam games, right? That's going to be the big takeaway a year from now. But at the same time, I do expect there to, at least in the first couple months, some things are going to hit the main page of Reddit. I'm feeling so confident that it's going to be like, hey, look, somebody made God of War 2018 in Dreams. Take a look at this crazy stuff.
Even just, I'm thinking Little Big Planet. Like there was a good like year when that first came out where you're like, oh, look at this crazy thing somebody did in Little Big Planet, and then that would kind of like percolate. So I'm sure we'll at least have that.
Yeah, and maybe we'll even be seeing it soon with the beta, right? Because they're starting out with a super private beta, which I don't think is exactly what they were messaging before. I think they're planning on having it being a little bit wider of a beta that they've been promising 1,000 times in 2018.
Well, that's early next year now, right?
Yeah, for the wider one at least. So maybe we'll start to see that stuff there. Should be fun. Nick Anguiano from San Diego, California says, hello, Ben and GI staff. So on a previous episode of the Game Informer show, Ben Reeves seemed bummed out that nobody was requesting more on the street segments. I think Ben should be obligated to go on every single cover story trip, but he has to stay around the parking lot and accost people walking by and ask them if they know who works right there. That, or maybe ask the developers where they frequently go to lunch, and then send Ben Reeves there to order food and ask both the employees and customers if they are aware that video game royalty frequently eats there. You're welcome, Ben.
Video game royalty. We have talked about trying to do man on the street stuff in other cities while we're traveling. It feels like we never have enough time. Is part of it. I do like his idea of like, hey, do you know who works there? That's kind of fun,
I do, because this is my parking lot.
Right. Please get out of my space, sir. I need to get to work.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir.
I think maybe personally speaking, I'm just a little bit scared of doing it while traveling to like other countries, because it would be fun, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know if you're allowed to film on streets. I know even like, New York is obviously stingy about that stuff. Minneapolis, no one gives an S, but we still make people sign like little media waivers. But I don't know if us just typing out, I hereby give permission to use this in GameInformer.com is good for like Japan or France or anything, so.
Thanks for putting a target on our back. Now the lawyers out there like, oh, that's what they do?
No, I feel it's very ironclad.
We got it locked down. Don't worry about it.
We never make fun of anybody in those videos.
Nope.
So everything's great.
Everybody walks away happy.
They do, actually. Like I think most people have a good time.
Yeah, one or two people maybe not happy. But
there was one old coot one time who would
the
not
knife,
sign.
Right?
Well, he's great. He was great. The man with the knife that lives in Minneapolis is
yeah.
great. No, with that one old
Best
guy
friend.
where we did that interview, and afterwards he's like, I'm not going to sign that.
No. And so we couldn't use the stuff.
Right, and it was gold.
It was the best stuff. There was one guy, I went to pet his dog, and his dog almost bit me in the nuts. You remember that?
No,
His dog was a jerk.
I hate that dog. Hey, Ben and crew, says Colin Fingar from Elmwood Park, New Jersey. How do you feel about well-known actors and actresses starring in video games? I'm talking about your Norman Reedus, your Mads Mikkelsen, Peter Dinklage, Kiefer Sutherland. I'm usually cool with it, but the celebrities contribute just their voices to their respective characters, but when the models start looking like their real-life counterparts, I'm not the biggest fan. For instance, my mind kept being ripped from the world of Until Dawn every time I saw Mr. Robot's Rami Malek on the screen. But I was fully enveloped in the world of Red Dead Redemption 2 from start to finish. Are you guys distracted by that stuff?
Yeah,
To be fair, I believe Until Dawn predates Mr. Robot.
Oh,
Yeah,
So
it-
Rami
like, all
Malek
that stuff
wasn't
was
a
filmed
star
in,
then.
like 2012.
but still, you understand what Colin here is going
Yeah,
for.
I actually like it. I mean,
Really?
I'm not torn out of the Avengers when, Tony Stark looks like Robert Downey Jr. So,
Well, that's different, though.
but it's not though. It's actors playing characters.
but they're real so this happened to me with Detroit.
Yes.
Like, there's some people modeled after, and they're like, they look like they do in real life.
Right,
And there
Clancy
were
Brown, yeah.
A few people, I'm like, wait, that guy, I know I recognize that guy. And it's just like, just off enough, because he's not a real person. He's a digital recreation of him. And so that really distracts me, honestly. And
Yeah.
anytime it happens in CG movies too, if you're like, oh, this is a really well-known actor, it's like, oh, I know that's Mel Gibson talking there. Like, that's
You're talking about
distracting.
Ralph and Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, come on. I hear it. I don't want to play a game and constantly thinking about, I need to jump on IMDb on my phone here. Like, that's no way to enjoy entertainment.
It's
damn
actually
it.
like too distracting for me, and I think it was Advanced Warfare with Spacey.
Yeah.
Like I can't play that. I want to play that campaign, but like I see Kevin Spacey, I'm like, this kind of icks me out. I don't.
Well, now it does.
Well,
Yeah.
no, yeah. I don't think
3
many
years
people are
after the
going
fact.
back to play Advanced Warfare.
I liked that campaign a lot.
It was
back in the
good. It
day.
was super good. RJ from Dominican Republic says, hey, Ben and crew, with the end of 2018, we're here. I developed a quick 4-question survey for Game Informer reviewers.
Ooh.
Imran, have you ever reviewed anything for us?
I reviewed one game, Hollow Knight.
Okay, well, then
Really? That's it?
All right, then you're not included in this batch, and I'm sorry, but we can laugh
Okay.
at these two. Ready? Approximately how many games did you review this year, do you think?
This year?
Yeah.
20? I don't know.
15, something like that.
Wow, Reeves. Good
Maybe
job.
less. I'm trying to think. Like 15 would be a little bit more than once a month.
Wow,
Yeah,
Reeves.
probably 15.
Ray's coming Reeves' way here. He's really
oh.
working his ass off. Which one did you enjoy the most to write?
Wait, do you not know the actual
write.
answers?
No.
Oh, what?
What's the point of this?
Because it's not all data. Like, which one was the most
But that
enjoyable?
first one is data.
Shut up. Which one was the most enjoyable?
All right. I don't know. Celeste comes to mind. I really like that one. That was an early, like, kind of hit for me.
Yeah.
I really liked The Missing, too.
Oh, of course. What was your
Yeah.
least favorite, Reeves?
Least favorite review?
Yeah.
I think Fear Effect was this year, right?
Yeah.
That one was
Yeah.
bad.
What did that get, like
I
a
gave
thr-
that like a 2 or a 3.
Okay.
They're making the Panzer Dragoon remakes.
Oh boy.
Oh, really? That same team?
Yep.
Ah,
they
Reeves,
just-
those are your favorite games.
They are my favorite games. And even when that news came out before I knew it was them, I was like, this is not going to be good.
No, definitely not. Okay.
I knew it wasn't going to be good when I called Sega, and they're like, "Yeah, we have nothing to do with this."
What? How's that possible?
They I guess had licensed it out, but
They're
they
just
have
licensing
like,
out all their properties with Shenmue and Panzer Dragoon.
Yeah, the press release said we're co-developing it with Sega, and Sega's like, "No, not at all."
Oh, question mark.
Okay. Most favorite.
Probably UFC 3 or Splatoon Octo Expansion.
Interesting. Least favorite.
Oh, man, I didn't score anything that low this year. Maybe Floor Kids, the rhythm game. That was like super early on.
weird. Okay, yeah. Personally, what is the hardest part of writing a review?
Writing it. I honestly, I was talking to Cork about this not too long ago. I think reviews have slowly become my least favorite part of the job, honestly. Just because, like, they take a lot of time to play the game, and that can be fun, but I don't know. You just have to think harder when you're trying to write those, because you have to, like, analyze things and, like, be clear about what you're trying to say.
Oh, yuck.
Ugh, gross.
My job, PU.
Well, it's like you can write a preview in like an hour or something, but like a review just takes way longer.
A review does take a lot longer. I think that playing the games in a different way than I would Like if I'm not in the mood to play that game, I still have to play it, you know?
Right.
Also, I reviewed Pokemon Let's Go, and I really liked that.
Oh, good. That's
An amendment to my first answer, second answer.
Bonus. Which city did you enjoy visiting during cover story trips or events?
Oh, we could all answer this.
Montreal.
Oh, for Far Cry? Mm-hmm. Was it your first time there?
That was my first time in Montreal.
Did you get some poutine?
I did.
Was it good?
It was very good.
Where'd you go for poutine in Montreal?
McKibben's.
Don't know that one, but I'm sure it's great. Is it the one right across the street from Ubisoft Montreal?
I don't think so.
Okay,
I
good.
didn't stay right next to Ubisoft Montreal. I stayed like in the middle of downtown.
Gotcha. Montreal, by the way, pro tip for anybody living in the States, if you want like a cheap European flavor, just fly to Montreal. It feels European.
I
and
wish
it's
I
so
went
much
there
cheaper.
in the summer instead of December.
Yeah, for sure. They have like
Or
some
November.
hippy dippy bongos where you smoke weed and play drums on the hill.
Do they?
Yeah,
That's
we'll
cool
ask
city.
Elise about it. Yeah, it's great.
I visited Sweden this year, which was really cool for the Rage trip.
Yeah.
And I like Sweden.
Pro Sweden.
Yeah, I'm for it.
Yeah, it's great. I guess Tokyo, I guess, is always my favorite from cover story trips and
Hard to
stuff.
beat,
but
yeah.
I love
you know,
New
that's-
York, and I went there twice this year, which is the first time I've been to New York since I started working here, which is awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
You guys who don't review things, like if you had to review a game this year,
Oh, yeah.
what would you have picked? Like, I have to review this game or a game.
Like, that sounds terrifying, just to be like the most knowledgeable about this stuff. I feel like I could have done Pokemon Let's Go.
Oh, just writing off my contributions, I guess.
Yep. Not to think about this episode in particular too much, but WarioWare Gold, I felt like I could have pulled off that review if I had to. Everything else, I would feel like a fraud.
So me and Kyle are replaceable, is what you're saying.
Oh yeah, I've been screaming
Okay.
it. Yeah, I've actually been slipping notes under Andy's door. That just
Having private
remind him of
meetings.
that, Yeah.
Hanson really wants more work to do. What about you, Imran?
I probably could have done Monster Hunter World because I ended up putting like 300 hours into that game.
Wow, Jesus. You're
And
nuts.
like that
but-
would not have been good for a review because I would have just been playing the game instead of actually reviewing it.
Yeah, that's true. Let's see. Can you imagine? You think it'd be fun or stressful to review Red Dead Redemption 2?
Stressful.
Stressful.
Bert said it was a combination of the two.
It was an
Yeah.
honor, but I just can't imagine being in Bertz's position. I think about this a lot with like Kyle as well when you reviewed Breath of the Wild and we had him on the podcast and he was just kind of like, yeah, it's really good. Like traversal's good, you know, but it's just tough to get like a definitive sentence out of him. And just when it's coming in that raw, I can't imagine finishing Red Dead 2 before everybody and trying to coalesce in a vacuum like, is this the best game ever made? Or am I crazy? Or is it mediocre?
Yeah.
Point is, reviewing seems hard. In a vacuum, that seems so hard. Not being able to talk
It
to your friends
sure
about
can
it.
be.
Right?
I agree.
Anyways, Noah in Los Angeles says, Happy holidays. Happy holidays. Hey, Ben and other informers, here's a fun little game for y'all. Ready for this?
All right.
Ready for
Can't
this
wait.
nightmare?
Oh, no.
Choose a character, and we can cut if we need time to think here.
Okay, Brian Shea.
Choose a character from Red Dead 2 that you identify with
Oh, God.
and reenact a scene from your favorite movie as that character.
Oh, this sounds bad.
This
You
is.
can do it by yourself or choose a fellow host to act it out with you.
I don't have an answer to any of those questions.
Look, we're going to cut
Yeah,
and really come
yeah.
back with something brilliant on this.
Okay. Hey, Marty.
Is that you?
Marty, we've got to go. We've got to go back.
Go back where? I got Jennifer here about to take the new truck for a spin.
Well, go ahead and bring her with. It concerns her too.
What are you talking about, Doc?
It's your kids.
What's
it's
wrong?
your dang kids.
Oh, the assholes or something?
No. Well, yeah, sorta. Well, get in.
Get into this?
Yeah, that's right. I just need to get a little bit of fuel. Bloop, 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 bloop.
But Doc, hell, ain't enough road to get up to 88 miles an hour.
Oh, Marty, roads. Where we're going, we don't need roads. Oh!
I don't see a single person marching into this room to give us an Oscar.
What's happening?
What's happening? We're waiting for any sort of accolade whatsoever.
You were recording that, right?
Hang on, did
don't
we
wanna
get
lose
that?
that.
Is that in the can?
Oh my gosh. We got it.
Yes!
Oh, the cameras are smoking.
Okay, thank you, Noah from Los Angeles. Hero of the people. Email of the week. What are we going with?
Did we say which characters we were?
I was playing Kratos.
Yeah, that's right. And I was playing Celeste.
All right, Shay, snap out of it. Email of the week. What do you guys like?
That last one was fun. I liked the one where it said worst game from the franchise.
Oh, you did? It was so negative. I like that. I like the, hey, does Microsoft treat you guys all right? Question about the studios.
Treat us all right?
Well, no, treat studios okay.
Okay, sure.
I like the...
It's a good discussion.
Also like the interview one, but Bad Games interviews. Mm-hmm. Imran, where are you leading, man?
I kind of like the Microsoft Studio one because like it got us to more talk industry stuff.
Yeah, well, you're an industry man. Shay, what about you?
Let's do Microsoft.
All right, there we go. It's Adam Serrare from Stormville, New York. Stormville, welcome to the big board. Ba-ding! And welcome to the grand competition happening next week for Email of the Year. It's going to be
A
brutal.
battle royale, you could say.
Absolutely. We will have an episode next week as well. So next week, we're going to be running down our top 10 games of 2018. We have a group of 5 people on the table. It's going to be a packed show. And then Email of the Year after that. But for now, frickin' Will Wright is going to be on the podcast.
What?
Yeah, that's the interview for this section. Imran, if you're talking to Will Wright, what would you ask him about?
I would ask him what the deal was with the Bowser attack in SimCity SNES.
Oh.
Like, did they work with Nintendo? Was that Nintendo's idea or was it his?
Imran, you'd be happy to learn that we talk about his relationship with Nintendo and working with Miyamoto in this interview, but it's not specifically about that, but I wish I would have asked that. Also, I wish I would have asked him to get on a better Skype connection earlier on. So the first couple answers are a little bit sketchy, but we fixed the audio issues after like a minute. So stay tuned for a wonderful interview with
Well, you
Will
know
Wright.
what they say. You can't go wrong with Will Wright.
Yes, and
Happy
Jay.
New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year!
Happy
Here's
New
Will
Year.
Wright.
Love you.
Will Wright, welcome to the Game Informer Show, sir.
Well, thank you. Good to be here.
Oh my gosh, it's so good to hear your voice. We've missed you. The gaming industry has missed you, Mr. Wright.
Yeah. Well, I've been lying low.
Why is that?
Well, I'm just kind of working on a background project with small, no rush. And, we have 3 kids at home and just, life.
Just life takes over at a certain point?
Yeah.
You want to just walk us through your life these days? It's just a lot of working from home, dealing with family. Are you still going to an office every day? Like, what is your life like?
Well, working on this app that I'm kind of working on with a small team, doing a lot of reading, creative projects, art, building weird things, whatever, enjoying life.
Please tell me you're writing a book. Are you writing an autobiography?
Yeah, I've never really wanted to write a book.
Really? Why not?
I enjoy reading books a lot. I think, if I did anything, it would probably be maybe more of a graphic novel, kind of like Child's Understanding Comics. I'd like something that'd be a little bit more visual.
Okay. Yeah. Do you keep up with the world of gaming? Do you follow E3 every year? Do you have any interest in that, or is it just nice to be checked out?
I don't really keep up with all the new games coming out and what's happening every week. No, I just play games for fun.
Okay, well, so we moved around a little bit to get a better internet connection, so you sound a little bit better for everybody. It should be stable now. But sorry, so what are you playing these days then? If you have your pick of the litter, what do you choose to play?
Oh, I'm still addicted to World of Tanks.
Really? Out of everything?
Yeah, I love that game just because it's like a shooter for old people.
Oh, you're not still playing Advance Wars every day, like I think you said you used to?
No. I play a few things on my iPad, but World of Tanks is kind of like my guilty pleasure.
Wow. Are you interested in the sim genre? Are you checking out what's going on? Are you playing City Skylines, anything like that?
No, the kids do. So, sorry, Dave, I had to steal your room. But I watch what the kids play a lot. I have an 8-year-old, so I'm totally addicted to Minecraft. And a 13-year-old that's totally into Kerbal Space Program.
Oh.
So I see every little bit of those two,
Yeah, those seem very up your alley. Are you really interested in them, or is it still just kind of academic? You just glance at the screen every once in a while?
Well, I'm amazed to see what the kids are doing in these things. And they're learning a lot,
Yeah, now you get a fresh perspective on, I think, everybody growing up in the 90s and how their parents looked at them playing your games.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a confusing route for you. So, okay, so you're relaxing at home, playing a lot of World of Tanks. What do you feel like you're trying to get at this phase in your life? What dots are you trying to connect in the entertainment realm?
Well, in terms of the games I've done and what I'm working on now, I've always been interested in getting closer and closer to the player. And so what I'm working on now is very psychological. Basically you put memories from your life into it and it tries to build kind of a map of your psyche, but in a game kind of format.
And this is Proxy?
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to talk about that team? You said it was a small team, but what is the development of Proxy actually like?
Well, it's a small team of like 10 people. And, we're basically trying to find ways to make it fun and entertaining to put memories from your life into it, first of all, and then bring them to life. They become these graphic objects that live in a world, and there's this whole landscape that kind of represents your memoryscape. And then from that, we start, looking at associations you have, what makes you different from other people, how you think, maps of how you think.
That sounds like a tall order. By the way, it sounds awesome. I love the idea of trying to connect your real life to the games, but I'd imagine in today's climate, last couple of years in particular, it's like I'd imagine so many people are going to be like, I've had enough with this social media nonsense. I don't want to tell them even more about my ex-girlfriends. This sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, the main thrust of it for me is that it's very personal. So it's not even, you can share it. You can choose to share memories, but that's very external and overt. Most of it is, just for you. It's like a mirror into your own kind of id.
Okay. And what do you think people will take away from just looking around a room and seeing the objects, or where's the epiphany coming from?
Oh, well, as you start putting memories from your life, I started after I put about 24 memories, it started showing me associations I had that I didn't even realize I had. Like associate my father with Sunday, for certain reasons. And people, it'll start showing what emotions you connect with certain people, what places you connect with certain activities, a lot of different things that you probably don't, when you see it, it makes sense. And it shows you maps of like the people and on a landscape, and the way they're grouped actually makes sense to me. So it's this funny kind of reflection back of who you are at a deeper level that, when you see it, it seems perfectly right, but it's in your subconscious. Basically mapping your subconscious understanding of the world. It's kind of hard to explain without showing it.
Yeah. When's it coming out? Do you have a rough release frame?
We're roughly looking at about a year from now.
A year from now. Okay, yeah. That's why get closer to the players? Why do you think you're pulled into that?
Well, basically I want to take the player's psyche and make that the landscape for the game. And when you see this landscape and, it's your psyche, this, it totally connects to you. It's kind of eerie and cool in a way. And, with the kind of stuff that's happening right now with machine learning and AI, they're able to look under the hood and find all these patterns in large amounts of data. And applying that to your subconscious, to me, it's just kind of fascinating.
Yeah. So you feel like looking at the industry today, it's like the dots that aren't being connected is kind of, AI learning, more complex tech aspects, and also just the extremely personal. Just those are completely end of the spectrum. That's what you're trying to shove together here? Kind of, yeah. I mean, usually the AI machine learning stuff is applied to marketing or playing chess or credit card scores, that kind of thing. The human mind, to me, is like the most fascinating thing in the universe, the most complex thing we know about in the universe. And so using the computer is kind of a microscope on that, and being able to, basically look inside of our own heads and see reflections of that in ways we've never seen before. There's something very compelling about that. Yeah. Well, here you're here to talk about the masterclass. Yeah. It's a crazy honor. You look through just their website alone, it's like, all right, you can learn from Steve Martin on comedy, Scorsese on filmmaking, Hans Zimmer on composing, or Will Wright on game design. That's a crazy honor to be in that pantheon. Yeah, I was really amazed to see, the quality of the lessons they had there. It was amazing to me. So they reach out just asking if you're interested, or what was the first discussion about this? Yeah, they just kind of reached out to me. I guess they had a lot of interest in having some kind of game design lesson, and they asked around and decided to invite me, I looked into it, and it was very challenging, for me to kind of come up with how I would teach game design in one whole chunk like that. I've given a lot of talks, many talks on game design, but usually they're very focused talks on this part or that part, or just a specific audience. But just, step back and look at all these things that I had been kind of talking about over the years and try to comprehensively organize it into one thing was challenging, but very fun. So what is it exactly? Is it kind of like an iTunes U, where it's just going to be a series of videos that you can watch online, or what's the format like?
Yeah, it is. It's like, I think about 20 lessons. Each one's about half an hour-ish, 20 minutes, 15, depending. But, it's pretty deep in terms of, I try to go into the fundamentals of what I see as game design, but a lot of it really is player psychology, how players think, how you motivate them, how you, tweak little parts of their brain. Some of it is on things like prototyping. There's a section on system dynamics and basically how you can build emergent systems, with under various paradigms like network theory or cellular automata or system dynamics, that kind of stuff. So it gets pretty in depth.
I'd imagine this does feel like writing a book.
Yeah, I mean, it was in terms of the way I would outline it. Yeah. So, I had to step back and say, okay, what's the right material to present? What's the order to present it in? And then how deep to go in each section.
Yeah. Does it feel like writing some of your classic speeches from the past, just getting back into that groove?
Yeah. I was actually looking back at a lot of my speeches and trying to pull out the things that all kind of work together. And, having to step back and organize it all as one whole thing made me kind of rethink a lot of it. There's this old saying that to really understand something, you have to teach it. And I think it's very true.
Yeah, it's like it's the equivalent of like proxy, I'd imagine, going back to your old speeches and figuring out the connections in your own life of like, here's a good point, here's a good point.
Right, here's how I think about it, really,
Yeah, were you able to connect to those old speeches when you watch, your history in video? Are you ever shocked about like, I can't believe I cared so much about this back then, or things that really stood out to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, it's always just kind of weird hearing your voice recorded or seeing yourself on film. It's kind of uncomfortable for me, so I usually don't go back and look at those.
I'm sure, I don't want this to be just a full ass-kiss rodeo, but you're both right, so you have to kiss a little bit of ass here. But we had Ocean Quigley on a couple years ago on this podcast, and he was absolutely great. And he was talking about my favorite thought coming from you originally, just about the idea of thinking about physics as the compression algorithm for the universe. Yeah. And then having game design be the exact opposite, where you're writing code to hopefully expand into the entire universe. That might be the smartest thought that's ever been thought on planet Earth. So congratulations. Do you still think about that a lot?
Well, yeah. I mean, to me, that was actually part of the lessons. For me in aesthetic, one of the questions they asked me, what was my favorite game, which actually is the game Go, the board game Go. And it's primarily because for such a simple rule set, it has the most complex strategy. So the ratio between the complexity of the rules versus the strategy that comes out of it is, it's a huge ratio compared to any other game. And, to me, that's emergence. And that's one of the things that I think the game designers need to learn to discover. It's not really, emergence isn't something you engineer. It's something you really have to kind of discover.
Yeah. So were you compelled to do this masterclass? Because I'd imagine a lot of people are reaching out to you saying, Will Wright, please come give a presentation at our studio. Please help us. Do you have any advice in the game industry? Is this just like, do you see it as the one-stop shop for whenever anybody wants something in the future, wants to pick your brain in the future, just say, hey, just watch this masterclass?
Well, that wasn't the reason, but I think the attraction and challenge for me was, could I take all this material and bring it into a cohesive whole, And as I thought about that, I was actually found the challenge very entertaining. So that's what really attracted me to doing it.
Yeah, just compressing your life and everything you've learned.
Yeah, and again, as I did that, I think I learned a lot, just by the fact that I had to kind of format and sort and categorize all this material.
Yeah. Can you, do you think you can teach anybody how to be a great game designer?
No.
Okay, what does it take?
I wish I could. Well, I think to be a good game designer, you first have to be a good designer. And I think game design is possibly one of the most challenging design fields that there is. And I don't think everybody really has, the same kind of mindset to be a good designer. Some people do, some people don't. But, for somebody who's a good designer, I think you could teach them to become a great game designer, yes.
Simple question. What do you mean by designer? What falls under that umbrella in your mind?
Well, I think the best definition I heard was actually from Charles Eames, from the Charles and Ray Eames team. He said design is constraint. And, he just meant that, once you have a set of constraints, design is how you maximize what you're doing within those constraints. And, the constraints could be technical, they could be psychological, they could be marketing or economic. But a designer can take kind of any problem with a set of constraints and say, okay, how do I maximize my result within those constraints? And how can I be creative and unique and do something that nobody's done before within the same constraints that hundreds or thousands of other people have operated underneath?
Yeah. Do you get that thrill working on a game like Proxy of just being thrown back into the peak of your game design skills?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's like Proxy and a lot of my other games. It was the subject that grabbed me. I'm very interested in psychology and subconscious. And it was like, okay, how can I kind of use this format of gaming to dive into that, investigate it, learn about it?
Do you ever want to work with other teams again, working on maybe more standard games, less psychological games?
I don't know. I mean, I'm enjoying what I'm doing right now, and it's just kind of like the path that my career has taken me to, and I'm not quite sure where it's going to go from there.
Yeah, people aren't banging on your door asking you to do a Kickstarter or something like that.
Well, people send me a lot of emails asking for this, that, and the other, but I, kind of follow my own compass.
Yeah. What do you get asked the most?
Oh, I do get asked to give a lot of talks. I mean, that's probably the most frequent one.
Okay. And do you enjoy doing those?
Yeah. I mean, especially if it's to a group I've never talked to before, because then I have to kind of rethink. I gave a talk several years ago to a U.S. Army symposium.
Oh, wow.
And it was interesting because it was all like, officers in the Army, in the military. So most of the talk ended up being the history of military wargaming, which I enjoyed researching. And, it turned out the armies of the world, were some of the first people to realize how educational games could be, and use them for that purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so going back to just training people to be a good game designer. So you have to be a good designer, then you become a good game designer. I'm wondering, is a big lesson for you just sticking with it? Like when we talked to Ocean Quigley years ago, he said, and with all due respect, he said, all of Will's ideas sound terrible, and you never know if they're terribly brilliant or terrible. And you just said, is that part of the job, is just coming up with an idea and then just riding it through no matter where it goes?
Well, I mean, some ideas, you get partway in and you start realizing it actually is just a terrible idea. And it's a matter of, cutting your losses early and going on to something else. But even during the design process, we do a lot of prototyping of ideas that might be within a game. We're going, down this big branching tree, and every time we get to a fork in the road, we have to decide if we're going to go, left or right. And a lot of times we'll build a prototype and play with it and say, okay, left is not the way to go. We're going to go right. So failure is part of the design process, and it's a matter of how to use failure as a tool, not to treat failure as something bad.
Yeah. And like The Sims as an example, I mean, you must have just been working on that for so long. Ocean even said that you were going solo for a long time, just an idea of, I know there's an idea here, I just need to keep plowing ahead.
Yeah, and a lot of it, was internal to me, figuring out where to go down that design tree. And there was a lot of failure along there. But, I think some of the very best ideas, the reason why a lot of other people haven't come up with some of these unique ideas is because it took a lot of failure to get there.
Yeah, and people are just scared of failure, too scared of failure?
Yeah, and also the persistence of it. I mean, just software development in general, a lot of times it feels like you're 90% done, but really you're halfway done, and if you've ever done software development, it feels just like that. You think you're almost done when you're halfway through. And so you really have to have a lot of kind of determination to get through that second half.
Yeah. We were just at the Strong Museum of Play in New York not too long ago, and there they have something amazing, which is your notebooks from your time at Maxis. And that's an amazing way to leaf through essentially your brain and figure out exactly how many ideas you're dealing with. Is that, I imagine that's a very personal thing. That must be bizarre for a museum to have all of your notebooks.
I was going to just throw them away, and they asked if I had stuff like that, and turns out I did, and I just gave them to them. I didn't even really look at them that much, because once I use these notebooks, I just put them aside. I don't go back and refer to them. It's more just my thought process, on the way there. Yeah,
going through them, and we have a video on the site showing some pages off as well, but it's amazing just how all over the place they are. How it really, they even brought up that it's like the most intricate Sims brainstorming session, and then it is your grocery list, and then it's like, hey, I got to remember to call Ted Price back. Here's his cell phone number, that type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like stream of consciousness, but I'm usually like juggling 4 or 5 things all at once, kind of multitasking in my head.
Yeah.
And if I put it on paper, it helps me kind of keep track of, that's that.
I was amazed, and you probably don't even remember how much you were into this, but for the Sims design, the early phases in those notebooks, it's like page after page of just astrology breakdown and astrology charts. Were you really into astrology back then?
No, actually, I can tell you what I was doing is that I wanted to have the astrology in the Sims be empirical. Okay. In other words, I actually took these different personality types in the Sims, put them together, and saw which ones got along well. And, basically mapped it to the real astrology signs. So, they'll say that, Capricorn gets well with Taurus or something like that. In the Sims, I found out that these two types get together, and also, they'll describe, Taurus is like this, that, and the other, Aquarius is like that. And so I roughly mapped the Sims' personalities into those zodiac signs. Then I tested them empirically to see which ones actually got along the best. And so I actually wanted to have something like astrology, but actually based on actual data.
And did you learn anything about the entire system?
Well, it was interesting to me, and this is a little harder to describe, that, you're dealing with like the Sims, the original Sims had 6 personality dimensions. So you can think of that as a 6-dimensional space. And these are clusters within that space. That space is subdivided. I basically had to subdivide that 6-dimensional space into 12 equally sized regions. And okay, this gets into geeky math stuff.
Love it.
For me, aesthetically, it was very interesting to take a 6-dimensional space, divide it into 12 equal regions, and then figure out which ones were had borders with each other and how large the area of the borders were. And I'm not even going to go any further because this is kind of like math aesthetics for me.
How do you?
But I enjoyed that whole process in my own head. It's nothing I would really expect anybody else to enjoy, but I really enjoyed, visualizing all this.
Why do you think you enjoy that? I know it's like asking Will Wright why he's Will Wright, but like, what do you think led to your brain being fascinated by that type of thing?
I'm not sure. I've always been very visual, and I actually never had much of an interest in math until I realized that I could take almost any math and make it geometry.
Interesting.
And once I could convert it to geometry and visualize it, it all made perfect sense to me. And so I, over the years, got better and better at taking any kind of form of math and figuring out how to make it spatial and visual.
Yeah. Have you wanted to do more work, or would you be interested in the future in doing more work in kind of I hate to say edutainment, but, gamifying education?
Yeah, well, I mean, kind of what I'm working on now, I want people to learn. I like, books, movies, whatever. The best ones are ones that after you see them, you kind of see your life differently, see the world differently. They make, they add something to your toolbox of perception. So, I guess it's fundamentally, you call it educational.
Yeah. What do you think are the most important books in your life? If you had to give a couple recommendations off the top of your head that have really shaped your path.
Probably the biggest one, the only book I've read more than 10 times, was Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Oh, interesting. Okay. What is it about that one?
Well, I think I read that, in my early teens, and the gist of the book, that I got, was that there's like no correct way of seeing the world. Each one has its strengths, and he's kind of counterposing holistic Zen, Eastern thought with, much more scientific, rigorous, analytical Western thought. And he uses a motorcycle as an example to, if you want to fix a motorcycle, Zen meditation is not going to help you a whole lot. But when you're riding a motorcycle on a summer day, out, and the wind blowing through your hair, that's a holistic experience. And to really get the most out of it, you want more of a Zen mentality, And so he's showing that for anything in life, there are all these different kind of ways in which you could see it and understand it. And, that had a big impact on me, kind of realizing that there's no one way of seeing the world is correct. No one philosophy is correct. No one religion is correct. That they're all tools. And actually you want a bunch of these at any point and use them, for their strengths.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's all you need to know. When you look back on your career, is there a certain era that you think about the most, a certain project or certain time in your life that you keep reflecting on these days?
Well, maybe a little bit more of the early stuff, because now I'm working with a small team again.
Okay.
And, it's starting to feel more like, after I'd been in the industry for just 5 years, it was still a young industry. The teams were small. We could do anything we wanted to. And, I actually enjoy the fact that it kind of feels nostalgic.
Just, is it Is it a younger team that you're working with? Does that help fuel that?
Yeah, they're fairly young.
Okay.
Several, but some older people I've worked with for many years, and there's something when you're working on a huge team like over 100 people, there's so much management involved, and I found that on a small team, we spend about 3 hours working individually for every maybe 1 hour we meet. On a large team like for Spore, we'd easily spend 3 hours meeting for every 1 hour we worked. So it was inverted. And I'd much rather, the 3 hours of work and 1 hour of meetings.
Yeah. It seemed like from reading about your life frame, it seemed like Sims Online was another one of those huge jumps, right? Where that was a huge team for you to operate with back then.
Yeah. The Sims Online and Spore were the two biggest teams I ever worked with.
Oh man, what do you think about when you look back on the Sims Online chapter? It's such an oddball in the industry.
Yeah, I learned a lot from that. It was what I would probably term as a glorious failure. There were just a couple things that we couldn't quite get to that I think would have made the difference. But on the other hand, those games, it's almost like you're investing half of your life. If it's successful, you're going to be running that thing for years and years and years. So it's kind of bittersweet, I guess.
Yeah. What do you think did you have any epiphanies after you released the game about how you could have cracked it a little bit more efficiently?
I think we needed a lot more customization tools in there where players could customize objects and stuff and have some economy there. That's the whole layer that I think was missing.
Okay. Was it a stressful project? Was EA really the Eye of Sauron looking at you guys for that one?
It was stressful for me just because of the size of the team. It was a team over 100 people. And it was, for me, just kind of working in that big of an environment with that much management overhead was kind of stressful. It wasn't like EA pressuring, that kind of thing. In fact, I think that they were a little more upbeat about it. I was a little more skeptical the whole time, thinking it's not quite ready. But yeah, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah. And then it seems like, at least from the outside perspective, not playing it, everyone just said, "Oh, isn't that just like the weird game that turned into a sex chat room within 14 minutes after it was released?"
Yeah. I mean, once you kind of give a game like that to the fans, they take it where they take it. And,
is that the day when you learned, like, oh, the internet's for sex these days? Why didn't I think of that? Of course.
And cats.
Okay, sex and cats. It never connected. Just
yeah.
What is that like to be on the Sims Online team when you start to realize, like, oh, this is just going a direction that we did not expect?
Well, it's like you have to always decide, okay, how much control are we giving to the players and how much are we try to retain? If you try to retain too much control, it just kind of evaporates, it dies on its own. All the really, really cool, thriving communities online were ones where the users, kind of basically crafted and created what it became.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like Frankenstein. You flip the switch, the monster gets up off the table and goes where it wants to go.
In this place, yeah, it's behind the beaded curtain, I think, in the video rental place. Yeah, I get it. So at a certain point, you just have to roll with it. Of like, all right, look, EA, I know it went this direction, but we have to make the best of this.
That's how the monster went to Amsterdam. I don't care.
And then eventually it became EA Land? Like they rebranded it?
I'm not sure I didn't even really follow it that much. I know some of the Sims Online team went off and they started another online thing, Churnia. A friend of mine, Luke Bartley, was running that for a while.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. So it reminds you of the early days working in this stage in your career. That's nice. Yeah. It's keeping you fresh, keeping you young, huh?
Well, kind of, yeah. Well, it wears me out.
Yeah. I feel like, again, I just want to stress, I feel like we want your voice in the game industry more. It's been a while. I don't know if that means you should start up a podcast, do more interviews. I don't know how you get out there, but there's so many things that's like, oh, we've been dying to ask you. Like, did you follow No Man's Sky's development at all? Did you have any thoughts on that game?
I followed a little bit. I actually downloaded it and tried it for a while. I understand the path they took, because it was so similar to Spore. It was interesting they tried to gamify it a little, in a different direction. I found some of the worlds kind of interesting, kind of visually, but I didn't play. I've actually had a lot more fun. What's been far more addictive to me is Google Earth and VR on the Vive.
Interesting. Because it gets to the same idea, right? If you just want to gamify religious epiphany, which you're trying to do with Spore as well. But that's basically it, right?
Yeah, well, I got a Vive a while back. I've been playing a lot of VR stuff. And the only two things that really stick with me are Universe Simulator and Google Earth. Those are the two I keep coming back to and I love playing with.
Do you feel like they need to be gamified at all, or it's like, hey, that's good, just leave it a little sandbox?
Oh, Google Earth is fine. For me, it's just a sandbox, and I think of things to go, places to go, different ways to look at things. Universe Sandbox, is really just a simulation with a lot of tools, and it's, when you get in there, you just kind of feel like you're in a god or something, throwing planets at each other and watching things collide, and it's beautiful.
That's all you need for empowering gamers. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's absolutely everything. Okay, last random question. Do you have any thoughts on Mr. Wright in Smash, Super Smash Brothers? He's been going so strong for all these years. Do you ever think about that?
Occasionally. I mean, it's an honor. When Nintendo, I first started working at Nintendo way back on the early NES, they did the very first SimCity, and Miyamoto-san asked me, if you would mind if they named the guy with the green hair Dr. Wright, the guy who kind of gives you the help. And, I was honored back then because Miyamoto, was actually got to be the best game designer ever, and also a good friend.
Oh, that's so sweet. I mean, do you still communicate with Miyamoto?
I haven't talked to him in a while, but anytime I get the opportunity, yeah, and I spent a fair amount of time in Japan with him.
What do you think is so brilliant about him? What have you learned throughout all of your experience with him where you say, this is it. This is the secret to his genius? I
think Miyamoto never lost his childhood, and it's not like he remembers his childhood. It's like he kept it with him, So a good bit of him is still, this 6-year-old boy playing in the garden. And you see that when you talk to him and just the way he approaches the world. And I think that's his most valuable asset.
That's amazing. Do you still have that youthful energy? Do you still have a 6-year-old's brain at all?
Well, I have an 8-year-old, which helps me, see the world through those eyes a lot, and I have to kind of sit down and just kind of get myself in his mindset and say, okay, wow, I see why he's so into this.
Yeah, you see why Minecraft is a phenomenon.
Yeah, exactly.
That's perfect. Well, hey, the masterclass, people just Google that and then sign up. It costs money. How does this work?
Yeah, actually, it's fairly expensive. It's like $90 for one course or $180 for all the courses. And but the quality of the courses is extraordinary. And you have to kind of just go on their site and see what's available there. But and I think they have previews and stuff that you can kind of check out if you really want to do it or not.
Okay, fantastic. Well, hey, anything else you'd like to say?
No, it's pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, I think we got it. Just on behalf of everybody in the world, I want to say thank you, Will Wright. Thank you for your hard work throughout all of your years, man. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Good talking with you.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode of the Game Informer Show podcast. Be sure to tune in next Thursday. We'll have another new episode waiting for you. Bye, everybody.